Trying down the outside of Irvine. This is good position. They're going to turn. No, it's off. They're both out of the race. Mika Häkkinen comes through to win in Spain.
It's race day at Barcelona's Spanish Grand Prix. The World Championship favourite fancies his chances.
I think it's our year, honestly. I'm absolutely sure. We have done always a very good job. We've always been up front, we've always been fast enough, and I think it will be our year.
Hello there, welcome to ITV's trackside studio. So Michael Schumacher very confident indeed, and Schumacher also quickest in this morning's warm-up. David Coulthard starting fourth after a quite harrowing week, and we will be hearing from both of them. The local forecasters, you know, have been assuring us it's going to rain today. There's plenty of cloud around the Circuit de Catalunya, but at the moment it is dry. Okay, let's have a word with Tony Jardine. Tony, this place suits McLaren, and very much like Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, those Supermax need the points badly here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very technical track, so it suits a very good handling chassis and very efficient aerodynamics, which McLaren have. But unfortunately for them, so now too do Ferrari. So Ron Dennis is saying, look, we've got to keep eating away at their lead all the time, and that means winning. Häkkinen's on the front row, but it's all down to the start. And as we know, overtaking here is difficult. The start is everything.
Here's Schumacher getting his pole 40 minutes into yesterday's qualifying session.
Yeah, he's never relaxing at all. He's never happy. He's always experimenting. He's gone off on his own route with harder tyres. He started off doing 2 flying laps, then he put it down to 1 flying lap, and toward 3/4 of the way through the session he did this sensational lap. And still he made 1 or 2 mistakes. He was still experimenting, finding all the parameters of this Ferrari, and he's equalled Mika Häkkinen's pole position record of 24.
Yeah, doing very much his own thing there, but how do you explain the speed at almost 1.5 seconds quicker than Häkkinen was last year?
One of the big things, we were talking to Jarno Trulli, and he was saying one of the big things is the tyre development from Bridgestone over the winter and through the year, and they've got so much more grip than they ever had before. And he said that's worth nearly a second a lap on last year's time, so that's one of the big explanations. Of course, the rest of the developments and aerodynamics and engines all go together, and it's quite a big jump.
What do you make of David Coulthard's performance in qualifying, and indeed his chances this afternoon?
Well, I think it's very brave anyway. He's been very, very focused on the job, and got a big pat on the back for him. He went out earlier on and he had the fastest time in the first section, but he had to abort the lap because of fuel feed problems. So he hadn't got a time on the clock. He went into the pits. The spare car is all set up for Mika Häkkinen. But what they did in the end, they put more fuel into the car, which helped eradicate the fuel feed problems. Then he went out and still set forth. And by the way, he says, I won the British Grand Prix from fourth place. Don't forget that.
It's worth just emphasising that grid positions are so important here because it is very, very tough to overtake.
Yes, it is. And Michael Schumacher, his first pole of the year. Mika Häkkinen has got to make a really, really good start. Just behind him he was, of course, on the grid. Still a great qualifying run from him. Barrichello hoping for much better luck and reliability from the Ferrari that they had last year. And Coulthard, that fourth place, we said. Villeneuve, he made a brilliant start last year. Ralf Schumacher only 0.2 of a second behind the Ferrari. He said that's absolutely brilliant. Relatively trouble-free for the twins there, Trulli and Frentzen. And they're hoping to get in the points today. And Irvine, well set up, he went the wrong way. Button said, not my best, not my worst, still learning this track. Verstappen, some mystery technical problems there, he knows not what. Salo had a good, clear run, no problems for him, but problems for Fisichella and for Benetton. No grip whatsoever. Herbert, his last run, he messed up on that, he admitted that. Deniz and Zonta, who's still disappointing me and a lot of others, I'm afraid, not performing quite as well. Alesi, they had problems with hydraulics. Wirtz, no grip, same situation for him.
A real story at the back though, Tony.
Yeah, Heidfeld there, Genet, his home Grand Prix, and then unfortunately Della Rosa, contaminated fuel after that sensational 9th place, has been put at the very back of the grid. All his times disallowed from qualifying. A shame for his home Grand Prix.
That really is tough for the Spaniard Pedro Della Rosa. Well, David Coulthard has followed Mika Häkkinen home here for the last couple of years. Coulthard actually made his Formula One debut at this Catalunya circuit something like 6 years ago, and as he tries to repeat his Silverstone triumph, the Scot knows his every move will be closely scrutinised.
David Coulthard wins the British Grand Prix by just 1.4 seconds from Mika Häkkinen.
The Scot provides us with a home winner. He relishes his appearance on top of the podium. Fiancée Heidi positively glows with pride. Then, last Tuesday, their private jet crash lands at Lyon, en route to Coulthard's Monaco base. They survive, along with his personal trainer. Both British pilots are killed. In Barcelona, McLaren decide a statement is the best method of feeding the media frenzy.
On impact, the plane's wing tanks ruptured and there was a fire on the right-hand side of the aircraft. When the plane finally came to a rest, the front of the cockpit had broken free from the main fuselage. At this point, we established the only way out was through the front, and Andy led the way through the debris. And as this part was 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I followed, to enable Heidi to be able to get down from the aircraft. Once we were all clear of the plane, I returned to the plane to see if there was anything I could do for the pilots, but there was nothing I could do to help.
Controlling your emotions and coping with tragedy is an essential part of a Grand Prix driver's existence. But this horrendous experience has affected Coulthard's outlook on life.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you can't have a situation like that which brings you so close to the realities of how fragile we are on this earth, and not have a change in some way. I also felt very close to Heidi beforehand, but I have an increased sense of how lucky I am in my life and what I have. I don't live in the real world being a Grand Prix driver. You know how lucky we are that we get to compete, to drive our cars, and get paid for it. Our hobbies, our passion, and it's made me realise just really the importance of family and friends, and really to. I felt I was pretty focused before, but I feel a renewed focus and a renewed determination to get as much out of every day as possible.
Drawing a line under that then and looking to the Spanish Grand Prix, how have you physically been in the car? Have you had any problems?
No, not really. I've got a few little bruises, but that is not at all going to affect the way I can drive the car. Obviously I expect to be a little bit more sore come Sunday evening than would be for a normal Grand Prix, because I'm starting in slightly worse physical condition. But the important thing for me was, from my first lap on Friday, I was quick, focused, and thinking about how I can get the most out of the car.
Through 96 and 97, teammates to Häkkinen, you pretty much had the upper hand on him. 98 and 99 have clearly been his 2 years. I felt at Silverstone you looked as if you were on the point of redressing that balance once again. Do you think you've lost that momentum now with all the things that have happened to you recently?
Well, clearly the preparation for this race hasn't been at all good, but I think that getting to the track, getting back into a normal routine helps renew the focus. And you know, I think, as I mentioned at the time, I was actually surprised how easy that race was to win. And I know people can say there's all sorts of circumstances that led to me leading the race and winning the race, but the fact is I was there standing on top of the podium in front of the two, you know, double-time world champions. And I know that what I need to do and continue to do is be in front of Mika and Michael when I get to the first corner. Now, qualifying hasn't been my greatest strength in the past, but I believe I've been getting closer and closer. I've been improving as a driver, and still feel that I've got more to give. I'm hoping and believe that they've been closer to the limit in terms of their experience and their age and what have you within the sport. And I know that if I can get in front of them, then I have them beat. There was no attack from either of them once I have track position.
So given all that then, what result would you be happy with to go away from Barcelona?
Well, winning is what's going to make me happy. Anything else is going to be a disappointment. But obviously you have to get through the race weekend, and you know, sometimes, like in Brazil, finishing second was a good result given the problems I had. If I have a car which works well and I drive to the best of my abilities, then winning is the only option.
And closing in on Michael Schumacher in the points table.
Yep, absolutely. Michael's got a bit of an advantage there, but as we've seen in the past, that can be overturned very quickly. And you know, I'm taking every race that comes and trying to give it 100%.
Well, David Coulthard's in for a painful 1.5 hours or so, carrying those bumps and bruises. He knows this circuit is one of the most physical tracks of the year. 4 big right-hand corners putting huge stress on all the drivers. Let's go on a flying lap then with Barcelona boy Pedro de la Rosa. It's Martin Brundle to talk you round.
On board with Pedro de la Rosa in the arrows now. The exit speed from the last corner into the pit straight is absolutely crucial as you head down the long undulating run towards turn 1. A lot of wing carried here, so only 195 miles an hour before braking. Very, very late. Tremendous grip. Just 75 miles an hour in second gear now. De la Rosa playing with the throttle into turn 3, and you can't go flat out until you're absolutely sure you've got enough space on the exit without running onto the grass. A short squirt up to 180 miles an hour before turn 4. Bring it in early. There's a lot of ripples here. The car starts to walk to the outside. A little surprise just as you get there, and switch immediately to the other side for turn 5. Just 55 miles an hour, and again he'll struggle to get the power down on the way out. This is called turn 6, but it's absolutely easy as you feed the car at 160 miles an hour into the foot of 7. Turn in early, cheat a little bit on the exit, get the car as straight as you can, head up the hill 155 miles an hour for the blind number 9 corner Campsa. Watch the exit, nasty bumps, diagonal straight towards La Caxa 10. Brake incredibly late and then get in early. There's a lot of grip on the inside. Now watch him load and unload the front tyres, play with the throttle, anything to keep the car going forwards, and catapult into turn 11, just 70 miles an hour. Cling to the inside. There's some strange bumps on the exit, then a short straight before you sweep through 12, 140 miles an hour, building further to 165. Now brace yourself for the last corner. Just lift the throttle slightly. There's just enough room on the exit and you're into the pit straight. This was top 10 for De La Rosa, but turned out to be a lot of hard work for nothing later on.
Yeah, poor old Pedro starting down the back. Meantime, the Jordans of Frenson and Jarno Trulli, they start on the 4th row. Last year, Jordan finished 3rd in the championship, best of the rest, as it were, behind the big 2, Ferrari and McLaren. But this time around, well, the Silverstone-based team have been slow to get their act together.
Last year the streets were paved with gold, but so far this season Jordan have failed to shine. Reliability's been their downfall, just 3 finishes from 8 race starts. So what's gone wrong?
We had to make a conscious effort designing this car that the technology that we had was very good to be able to fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th in the championship. But if we were ever going to catch the likes of McLaren and Ferrari, we had to make a different structure, and that structure was based on a much lighter car, much more scientific, much more aerodynamic, and much more braver, if you like, in terms of pushing the boundaries of technologies right to the limit. And in this case it sort of bit us a little bit, but I'm pretty confident, I have to say, and I think that we will show great signs very soon.
Frenson qualified 2nd at Silverstone and led for a time, but once again his gearbox let him down.
It's just a problem with the sensor. We've had some problems with vibration in a gearbox sensor that has been difficult to cure, but we've got a lot of new parts here. We actually identified the problem a long time ago, but it's taken us 5 weeks to get some of the more complex parts through, machined and heat treated, and all our suppliers have done a great job for us, but it's been frustrating. I mean, we've had some interim fixes that we thought would solve the problem, but it proved out that it didn't. But the test went well, and so we're confident that we've got that fixed for this weekend.
How confident?
Very confident. I hate putting my putting my neck on the line, but yeah, we're confident that it's been fixed fully.
But in the meantime, the team have been giving points away. Frentzen finished last year's championship in 3rd place, but he's currently lying 8th with just 4 points on the board.
It's not only the places we lost because of the trouble and the points we lost. It's also the way that it's stopped us as well on testing occasionally and developing the car in other areas. But I'm very optimistic that we will do a step forward the mid-season onwards and reducing the gap to McLaren and Ferrari. I'm 100% confident of that.
But there's still a way to go. Frentzen's 8th on the grid today, out-qualified for the first time by teammate Trulli in 7th. And with Williams showing ever more promise, that step forward can't come a moment too soon.
Well, Tony, how unsettling is it for them that their technical director, Mike Gascoigne, is on his way sometime in the future?
I think it could be very unsettling, to be honest. The drivers will be thinking, well, hang on, he's the mainstream man, he's the guiding light behind this car and everything. But I think we should look at it another way. They're top 3 team, yes, but they're not a manufacturer team. So always the big predators, the manufacturer-based teams, are going to go and target people like Jordan, unfortunately. The great thing about Mike is he's a real delegator, and there's a lot of talent throughout Jordan who could take over from him. I mean, Sam Michael is one guy who's Frentzen's engineer, etc. So hopefully in long term it shouldn't be too destabilising, so long as they don't send him off on gardening leave.
Do you think they've sorted out those reliability problems that have plagued them so far this season?
Well, it's such a difficult area, as Gascoigne was saying there, because it's a potentiometer, it's all the electronics. They knew the problem ages ago. It's actually getting it manufactured right.
Which was that again?
Potentiometer.
Okay.
It's a little thing in a gearbox there. You know?
Okay. Say a little thing in the gearbox like that.
Okay. So hopefully, what's been happening, it's been sticking in 6th gear. 2 races on the trot that did that for Frentzen, and they've lost points. I mean, he's running 2nd at the British Grand Prix and briefly led, so a great shame for Jordan.
It isn't a great circuit for them. Lots of Jordan fans have made the trip to Spain. What can they expect this afternoon?
Well, I think they could get into the points. Jarno Trulli always goes very well here, but he's been affected by these sudden gusts of wind. I mean, you see the flags moving out here, and suddenly they're going in a different direction. You can imagine what that's doing to the aerodynamics of the car, and suddenly you lose the front end of it or whatever. Very, very difficult.
Okay, Tony, thank you very much indeed. Well, there goes Michael Schumacher having a little warm-up. We heard him at the start of our show saying this will be his and Ferrari's year. The bookies aren't disagreeing. The German Forder went on to be world champion for a 3rd time, but he isn't one for statistics. He's happy to leave those to the anoraks.
You must have something inside you that says, OK, I want to match Fangio's 5 world championships. Nothing at all?
No, this is not my goal. I mean, you see, this goal to achieve the championship together with Ferrari, I think this is such a high target, such a high goal. I don't need to look into the past and drivers which I can't compare myself, which is different times. I'm a realistic man, and you can't compare the 1950s against the 2000s. That's impossible.
Now, it's 9 years since I've known you. I guess there's probably a third of your life almost actually thinking about it. But there are people who think that you push the limits too far when the prize is very big, when there's something big to be gained. When the stakes are big, do you go too far? Do you push the limits too far?
I believe I did only once in my life, honestly, and that was a situation which was Jerez with Villeneuve. What I want to say is I went through the school of Mansell, Prost, Senna, and all this what has going on in competition at this time. And that's where I draw my conclusion from. I mean, you have the rules, and the rules taken care to what happens on the circuit, and you get a guideline. And my guideline is different than what you have today. I have to adapt to these guidelines, what it is today. But at some stage, they had changed. But they haven't changed without examples. And what happened to me, in my view, is that I was the first example, like in '97, where they said the first time, listen, this is unacceptable. What is right, what is wrong? I think the stewards do say that.
To be fair to you, in the end, you put your hand up for the Villeneuve thing and said, I made a mistake, I was wrong, and I won't do that again.
I did, but on the other side, in the past, it was okay to do things like this, even though I don't rate them okay. But what you do. I mean, you're not going to do it, you're going to be second. And people say, why didn't you do it? If you do it, you're going to look stupid, and you're going to be criticized by the other way. So what is right, what is wrong?
It's true. I mean, I've had people drive me off the road straight into the wall with no problems whatsoever in the past. But
exactly. I mean, we know this situation, and things have changed. And I mean, now we have had a little discussion yesterday about, for example, my start in Imola. And honestly, in the rule, it's allowed to change once the side, and if you do that, you're fine. And I did this, and Charlie said, or the FIA said, it's fine. But some people don't accept this, or some people think it is not right. You can argue whether it's right or it's wrong, but the rules do allow this, and I would lose a position if I don't do it. So what I have to do it, I have to do it.
Okay, that was actually my next question. I mean, are you comfortable with? You're big on safety in Formula 1. We worked together on the GPDA after the death of Senna. You're still pushing like crazy on it.
Oh, yeah.
Are you comfortable with your start in Imola? Are you comfortable that that was acceptable?
No, actually very much. I mean, if I would have put anyone into, I mean, being next to each other and put somebody on the grass or put somebody really in a difficult situation, I would agree with you, but I didn't. All the guy behind me had to do was to back off a bit. And I mean, in a normal overtaking situation, you go down the straight with me and Hill, for example, some years ago down in Canada. I had to back off a big time at 300 kilometers per hour. This was 100 kilometers per hour. You can argue, is this right or not right? But then the rules have to be strict and say you cannot do it. But if you allow the drivers to do this, then some will do it, and some will go to the limit. And I'm known to go for the limit, but I believe I'm not known to go really over the limit if I know what is the limit.
Okay, thanks for talking to us, Michael. Interesting as ever.
Pleasure.
Tony, do you see something of a conflict there between his driving style and his concern for driver safety?
No, not really, because he does intimidate, he is aggressive, he is adventurous, and those are the sort of moves that Michael Schumacher would make. The bloke is an absolute ace. And of course his competitors are all bound to complain. That was Grand Prix Drivers Association they were talking about, and the drivers were all at the meeting here, and it was Irvine that complained about that very adventurous move. But if you put it another way, Michael is very concerned about safety. He's very concerned at the moment that a car will go into the crowd, and that is that when cars with two hot tyres hit each other, one can be launched in the air, as poor Martin Brundle's car was ages ago in Australia. He wants some sort of guards on the back. He says the FIA should do something about the spectator safety. We take the risk, but they shouldn't.
Thanks, Tony. Well, coming up, we're going to go grid walking with Martin. We're going to examine the drive for peak fitness in Formula 1 as the countdown continues to the start of the Spanish Grand Prix. Well, it's still dry here. It's 21 degrees at Barcelona's Catalunya circuit. The wind swirls on the straights, the big corners wrench the neck muscles, the average speed around 125 miles an hour. You really have to be in shape to handle it. Louise Goodman reporting.
Engines scream as 15,000 RPM is unleashed. Bang through the gears 160 miles an hour before the first corner. The start of a Grand Prix puts tremendous strain on a Formula 1 car, and there's a long, hard race ahead. But what about the man behind the wheel? What kind of stresses is the driver subjected to? Well, the Benetton team have been carrying out research to answer that question.
The race is the most important, and it's for 1.5 hours. So we know exactly where my heart rate is, and now at home I know exactly where I have to train in which area. Okay, there are different heart rates. I'm training for building up my performance, but for specific training you can use the data setup. So the pain which I have when I take them off is worth it, of course.
So what's the heart doing? Well, an average driver's resting rate is about 45 beats a minute. That rises to 120 as the adrenaline starts to flow on the formation lap. The pressure really mounts on the grid. The heart rate rises to 150, and by the time the lights go out, it's up to 170 beats a minute. Ambient temperatures and physical exertion are another element. As the race wears on, the heart rate increases to 180, and a challenging corner or a tricky overtaking manoeuvre can see it peak at 200 beats a minute. And there are other factors to take into account. On some tracks, the cars are braking from 195 down to 60 miles an hour in a matter of metres.
You're pushing up to 4.5 Gs there. Now that is a multiple of the head
and the helmet, which can basically equal anything between 16 to 20 odd kilograms. And when you think about it, if you add up all the corners and multiply that by the 65, 70 laps, whatever it is, and the driver's got to deal with that on, you know, every lap. As well as that, there's this thing called the Valsalva manoeuvre, which is a point where the driver literally hold their breath. They actually go into the corner, fight the G-force. It's like lifting a load. When you lift a load, you have to hold your breath to lift the load. Well, that shuts the oxygen off from the brain. So when the harder they push, or the later they brake, and the harder they push out the corner, the more the G-force, so the more the fatiguing element on that point. So you multiply that by the thousands of over 1,000 corners they're going to be doing, and you can see how the driver will get inner stresses.
Back at Benetton's High Performance Centre, the drivers are put through a rigorous training schedule to reproduce those stresses. A VO2 max machine analyses oxygen content, whilst a sophisticated biomechanical machine measures strength and resilience of the muscles.
We look at the data and we sit down with them and say, right, this is the areas, key areas you need to work on. It's not just us, we talk to the engineers and the management here to find out where they see the driver is not quite performing on race day or on testing example, and we use that information, and that helps us put together programs.
The fitter the driver, the better he'll perform, physically and mentally. It takes more than just talent to drive a Formula One car.
So this is the sort of thing that perhaps as us as the armchair watcher don't really appreciate that's going on. There is an incredible demand on these drivers, and sometimes you've seen drivers that literally need to be carried out the car at the end of a race.
They're all in shape for the off, 15 minutes away, 65 laps, around about 191 miles. Tyre wear is very important here when it comes to race strategy. 2 stops is very much the norm, but has Michael Schumacher got an ace up his sleeve? Here's James Allen.
Today's race will be one on strategy, but I'm not just talking about pit stops. I'm also talking about tyres. Michael Schumacher has gone out on a limb and chosen the harder of the 2 Bridgestone compounds. Everyone else is on the soft. So why has he done it? Well, he says it gives him a better feel, but I think he's got something up his sleeve. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is a typical soft tyre at the end of 22 lap stint, which is about what you'd do before you made your first pit stop here in Spain. Look at it, it's worn down almost to a slick. This is a hard tyre. As you can see, there's still plenty of tread left on it, but it's wearing down fast at the end of the stint. What Schumacher figured out before he came here is that the softer tyre drops off quite quickly at the start of a stint. For about 3 or 4 laps, it's worse than the harder tyre. And that's the moment when he's going to make his break and try and build some sort of unassailable lead. He has actually also got 3 new sets of tyres, whereas McLaren have only got 2. So how are they going to fight back? I think they'll do it in the middle part of the race. We saw in Imola, it's how long you have the fuel hose on for, how much fuel goes into the car at the first stops. That dictates how long a middle stint you run. And that's the area where McLaren are going to have to try and fight back. But for me, it looks as though Michael Schumacher has got all the aces in his hand.
Thanks, James. Well, they love a stroll down the Ramblas in Barcelona city centre, but when it comes to grid walking, he's the kiddie. There's only one Martin Brundle.
Hello, thank you, Jim. Sorry, I just realised I'm being rude with my sunglasses on, talking to you. Thought we'd do a slightly different grid walk today and just have a little wander around and a poke about. And had a bit of a hectic week, actually, and I'm running on a short fuse. If any of these prima donna racing drivers turn me down today, I might have a slap at them, actually. I thought we'd have a look into... good chance to have a zoom in on this Ferrari. Very rarely we're allowed in, and just looking so closely at it. And I was just watching just before we were thrown down here from the studio. Michael Schumacher was surrounded by 50, 60 people, some interviewing him, some just trying to shake his hand. And it's incredible, really, before a major sporting event. I'm trying to imagine a footballer taking a key penalty, having to put up with 40 or 50 people talking to him just before he takes a penalty. Let's go down the grid, because there's some fascinating ideas. Remember I showed you on the Brazilian grid poking our nose into the back of the McLaren? Well, I've noticed today there's so many more cars now. Look, they actually they're building a tent around the back of it, so we're not allowed to see any of the action. This is Mario Ilioner, who designs the engines for at Ilmor for Formula One, and he will hate us if we can get in there and see any kind of detail of how that they're going to fold the tent back now. Look, and then immediately look, 2 more guys are ready with the engine cover, so nobody, and still there's more covers underneath to make sure nobody can see the goodies and make sure that the other teams can't get an advantage. But here's a Ferrari, look, absolutely fully exposed. Normally you just can't get anywhere near one of these things when they're virtually together, but they're still checking the car, still tightening things up, and you know, just those last-minute checks. It always amazes me how much they've got to do. Don't you sometimes wonder who all these people are on the grid? I do. I don't know what they're all doing here. I don't know what job role they've got. One of these fine days on a different grid walk, we'll stop a few of them and just try and find out what they're doing here and what they're trying to achieve. But then notice how the grid just starts to get a little bit less busy. Jensen Button's going to be, we're not going to try and talk to him, but he's going to be, he's not in the car. He's playing the cool bit as usual. I don't know where he is actually. In fact, he's not even on the grid, is he? Can't see him anywhere. So JB is very cool. JV over here, Mr. Villeneuve in the BAR as ever. Look, he's under the. I've just been moved out of the way. Hello, Bernard. How are you? I'm not even going to talk to him today. Can't be bothered. Have a look at this. Look, JV underneath the mandatory umbrella, and it's not even raining. And he's sitting there, he's got his patch on his nose, look, to keep, so he can breathe a little bit better. How you doing, mate? And he's just focused, calm. The last thing he needed was me sticking my thumb up saying, how you doing? He's really trying to focus on what he's going to do. He's quite near the front of the grid. What is he, 6th on the grid, I think? And he can go, you know, right down the inside. There's loads and loads of space down there when they get moving a little bit further. And Jordan have got on to a little bit of a cover-upper as well, haven't they? Look, truly getting in his car, getting ready. And we got the same situation again, where we got this heat-proof cover. Again, we're going to see that coming off, and the mechanics is so well rehearsed. They work together so well as a team to make sure that they've got what they need. Well, I think that's given you probably a bit better feel of just the general action that's going down here on the grid. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. And there's Heidi and David Coulthard, Heidi, his fiancée, wishing him luck. Involved, of course, in that terrible accident in the week. One or two little facts and figures here that just might enhance your enjoyment of the upcoming Spanish Grand Prix. Hakkinen chasing a hat-trick of wins. Jackie Stewart, the only other driver to achieve this. Coulthard yet to win back-to-back Grand Prix, made his debut here. Schumacher scored his first Grand Prix victory for Ferrari. That was in the rain in '96, cloudy but still dry at the moment, and a great record in every Spanish Grand Prix at the Catalunya circuit. But Ferrari haven't won here since Schumacher in '96, and I think Lauda was the last time they had a pole in Spain. Okay, Michael Schumacher, just to confirm how things are looking, going to the 5th race of the season, 20 points clear of Coulthard. He's a couple ahead of Mika Hakkinen, then Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, and Fisichella there for Bennett, and he'll do well to score today. So Mika Hakkinen's won the last couple of races here. It's a very popular venue, this, for British fans. It's been a happy hunting ground for our drivers. Hawthorne, Graham Hill, Stewart, Hunt, Mansell 3 times, and Damon Hill have all reigned in Spain. How will Jensen go today, I wonder? It's the Spanish Grand Prix on ITV from Barcelona's Catalunya circuit. Settle back and enjoy with Martin Brundle and Murray Walker. Hola, Murray.
Hola in Spain, and hello in Britain to you, Jim, and to everybody else. Because looking down on the grid, there's something you haven't heard already from all the build-up that we've done. And that is that below the start position of 9th, which was to be occupied by the unfortunate Pedro de la Rosa of Spain in his Arrows, after a quite magnificent qualifying lap yesterday, there's been a change. Some people have benefited and some have done just the reverse. For instance, Eddie Irvine, who had qualified 10th, is now starting 9th, as a result of which he moves to the left-hand side of the grid, which is the clean side of the grid, or the cleaner side of the grid. On the other hand, the unfortunate Jensen Button, who had qualified 11th, now starts 10th, but he's had to switch over to the dirty side of the track, and so on. Johnny Herbert suffers because he qualified 15th and is now starting 14th on the dirty side of the track. And the unfortunate Pedro de la Rosa is suffering most of all because he's not only moved down from 9th, the clean side of the track, to 22nd, the dirty side of the track. Incidentally, he was 6th fastest this morning in the warm-up, and that is a very considerable achievement. Michael Schumacher was quickest again this morning in the half-hour warm-up. There's David Coulthard, who was 4th fastest. As a matter of fact, in the warm-up this morning, the positions Schumacher, Häkkinen, Barrichello, Coulthard were exactly the same as they were in qualifying, but Jenson Button, who, as I said earlier on, qualified 11th, was 5th fastest this morning. The Williams BMW is going extremely well because his teammate Ralf Schumacher qualified 5th on the grid. So the question now is what is going to happen at the start, because as you've heard, passing on this circuit, this 2.9 mile circuit, is a 65 lap race, is very difficult indeed. It is on most tracks. It's particularly difficult here because the performance of the cars is so close, irrespective of which constructor has made them, and they're all top men, of course. But Michael Schumacher is starting in pole position for the first time this year, for the first time since the Japanese Grand Prix last year, which followed his magnificent pole position in Malaysia when he returned last year after breaking his leg in the British Grand Prix. So he's on a real high here. He's matched Mika Häkkinen's 24 pole positions now. Mika Häkkinen is starting behind him. He was 0.3 of a second slower this morning. So Ferrari are certainly looking good because Rubens Barrichello has beaten his man, if you regard his man as David Coulthard. So it's Ferrari, McLaren on the grid, followed by Ralf Schumacher's Williams and Jacques Villeneuve, 6th. Now watch Jacques Villeneuve. He's starting from the right-hand side of the track, the left-hand side as you will be looking at it. He's a super fast starter. He's got an improved Honda engine in the VAR, and he's going to be going for it.
Yes, Jacques is pretty handy off the line, and maybe that is something to do with the fact that he's sitting in the car and totally, utterly focused. But he's got a lot of work to do today. I think everybody's got a lot of work to do, Murray. I believe Michael Schumacher has got about 0.2 of a second per lap in hand over everybody else. If you look at the general trend through testing last week, free practice, qualifying, the warm-up this morning, Michael has got the edge around here. First time for a long time. And but having said that, the last time a Formula One car driver won from the pole was at the Hungarian Grand Prix last year. So the facts are certainly against Michael in that respect, but everything else is very much for him. This is a very physical track. He's super fit, as we know, and Michael really, I think, has got a great chance of winning this race this afternoon.
There we are, we're with David Coulthard now, Mika Häkkinen in front of him, Rubens Barrichello to the left, that's Spaniard Marc Genet in the Minardi.
Yes, there was quite a... And Michael Schumacher was slow away, but I think he has, yes he has, he's now rejoined. So I thought Schumacher was temporarily stuck on the grid there, Murray, but he did get away eventually.
Yeah, and you are now, of course, for those of you who are remembering the British Grand Prix some years ago, when he passed several people after the start of the parade lap and was penalised, you are now allowed to regain your position on the formation lap, which is what they're on now, exiting turn 2. Now then there's this long, you remember you've been round with Martin, a tremendously stirring exposition that was too, around the long turn 3, this is turn 4, which leads down to the slowest part of the course, turn 5, it's about a 55-mile-an-hour corner on the apex. And now they start to climb. There's not a lot of gradient here at Barcelona, but I can tell you that when you try to walk round it, you notice that it's a lot steeper than you would have thought.
Yes, there are very few overtaking places because one fast corner tends to lead to another. I have seen a car overtaken into turn 5, for example. Unfortunately, it was me, I think, at the time, on a wet day in a race many years ago. But really, it's virtually impossible anywhere else, except if you get a good tow down the pit straight.
you can have a stab. There's very good braking on either side of the track going into the first corner. The problem is staying close to the car in front through those last two very high-speed corners, where you see Michael weaving around now, generating some heat in the tyres. I've said before, I think it generates very, very little heat, but there you go. Now, one thing I did learn this morning is that after the drivers' parade, a lot of the drivers noticed that it's very, very windy up on the top of the circuit. You don't notice it so much in the paddock or down here in the pit straight, but the wind crossing the circuit has a big effect here at Barcelona, and it really upsets the aerodynamics just when the drivers need it most in these high-speed corners, and that will play a factor through the race as their cars are moving around.
We're with Rubens Barrichello now, and he watches Häkkinen peel off to the right, and he closes up on his position on the grid behind Michael Schumacher. So when you come to look at the grid head on, as you're almost doing now, pole position, Michael Schumacher will be on your right. I remind you to watch Jacques Villeneuve. He will be on the left-hand side, 3 rows back. The 2 Spaniards, sadly, are at the back, because that's Marc Genet, who's starting 20th in the Minardi, and Pedro de la Rosa, very discouraged, obviously, closes up at the back.
Yes, the front men have been sitting now over 30 seconds, Murray. 32, 33 seconds before the lights.
It's ready. And it is action! Nice one, Michael Schumacher, who cuts across the track and tries to head off, and does so. Mika Häkkinen, who continues to attack as they go up into turn 1. David Coulthard, then look at Ralf Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher is up into 2nd position. Amazing. Or has he got past Häkkinen? No, he's not. But he's got past David Coulthard. So David Coulthard, who started 4th, has been passed by Ralf Schumacher at the Williams BMW. A magnificent start.
And they both passed Barrichello, Murray. So the main man off the start was very clearly Ralf Schumacher. Hooked it up well, found a nice clear route through, and slotted into 3rd, and so nearly 2nd, as you saw, going into that first corner. But a dream start for Michael.
Yep, 7 years between the Schumacher brothers. Just imagine what Ralph's going to be like when he's got yet more experience under his belt, and already Pedro Diniz in the Sauber is out of the race into the gravel track. Hopefully there's not going to be a problem over keeping the race going, because Michael Schumacher is exactly where he wants to be. Started in pole position, got a magnificent start. He's ahead of his main rival, Mika Häkkinen, and Ralf Schumacher is in 3rd position, ahead of David Coulthard, who is 4th. Rubens Barrichello, who started in 3rd position, is down to 5th place in the 2nd Ferrari, and that's a very unhappy situation for the Brazilian. Coming up to complete lap 1.
And Jenson Button moving up into 9th place too. So big cheer from the crowd outside the commentary box here as Michael Schumacher goes over the start-finish line with a 1.1 second lead, as you can see, over Mika Häkkinen. And then the rest following closely. So Schumacher then up into turn 3, just what he needed with his strategy and the tyres he's running on that car, with some clear air in front of him.
And Jenson Button in the top 10 with a vengeance, because he's in 9th position, having started 10th on the grid, qualified 11th. And bringing up the back of the field, Mazzacani in the Minardi, because Pedro Diniz has already retired. 22 started, 21 running, lap 2. Michael Schumacher leading at the end of the first lap by 1.1 seconds. And now, as far as Mika Häkkinen is concerned, he is at a major disadvantage. His car was slower than Schumacher's Ferrari all the way through practicing and qualifying. Schumacher is ahead of him. That will help Ross Brawn in the Ferrari pit lane, the man who defines the strategy. There's another one out. It is the Prost of Jean Alesi, the great French driver. Oh, and out goes another one. That is the Arrows of De La Rosa. Well, what a dreadful Spanish Grand Prix it has been for him, because he also went off this morning in the warm-up, and this will be a meeting he will want to forget. So, 3 retirements. Diniz out, Alesi out, De La Rosa out. Michael Schumacher, fastest of all, of course, and he's increased his lead over Mika Häkkinen to 1.6 seconds as he goes into turn. Here, replay.
Yes, here's the start. They're all quite clean away. Jenson Button, I see, moving well through the middle of the pack there. That's how he jumped up to 9th place. Here's another view from the back of the field. And look, the ones spinning their wheels just don't get away quite as well. If you can hook up and get rid of all the wheel spin, these things take off in the most amazing way. But Michael away. Mick are doing quite well too, I can see right at the front end. Ralph getting squeezed out at the last moment. Coulthard, a net loser, but maintains his 4th place because of Barrichello's very poor start. There it is. That's how, look, that's how Hakkinen stayed in front of Ralf Schumacher to maintain that 2nd position. 2 Jordans then. Which one of those is ahead? Frentzen has passed truly. Frentzen ahead and leading the 2 Jordans. They're currently 7th and 8th. Johnny Herbert is back in 15th. Eddie Irvine in the sister Jaguar, a couple of places ahead of him in 13th.
Brilliant bit of track exploitation by Ralf Schumacher at the start there, and he continues to hold his 3rd position ahead of David Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher is stretching his lead, coming through to complete the 3rd lap. Now let's see what the gap was. 1.6 seconds at the end of lap 2, over the line into lap 4 he goes, 2.4 seconds. Now this could be an indication of fuel strategy. I've even had it suggested to me that some people might be stopping 3 times, which I find very hard to believe. That's Pedro de la Rosa, a replay.
Yes, he's lost his front wing, so he's obviously tripped over somebody and he's gone off. I mean, you're losing several hundred kilos of downforce when your front wing disappears. That's why his car literally understeered off the racetrack. Michael Schumacher scampering away. The man being dropped off the back of the leading pack very much is Rubens Barrichello. After him, Villeneuve, Frentzen and co down the field are a country mile off the pace, some 2.7 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher on that lap. Now, an ideal, from my understanding, an ideal strategy here is stopping 3 times, but I think that would be quite a brave move. I'm expecting them to stop twice with a longish first stint and a good sprint in the middle, but we'll see how it shapes up as the race unfolds.
Well, I've seriously had it suggested that somebody might, or some people might be stopping 3 times. You saw the gallant Louise Goodman ferreting about in the Arrows garage there, probably waiting for De La Rosa to come in and tell us what happened to him. He's not going to be a very happy chap. So I repeat that Alesi, De La Rosa and Deniz are out of the Spanish Grand Prix. We're on lap 4 out of 64 into lap 5 now. Michael Schumacher leads. 2.4 seconds was the gap. 2.7 seconds is the gap. David Coulthard there is edging up on Ralf Schumacher. There's only 0.8 of a second between them. Williams BMW 3rd. McLaren Mercedes in 4th position. Here is a replay, and that's what happened. That's Pedro de la Rosa coming together with Jean Alesi.
Yes, so Alesi just simply tipped off into the gravel. That's how De La Rosa lost his front wing, and the very next corner he understeers, drives straight off the road.
Well, I never cease to marvel at how well Ralf Schumacher is going. Not just because he's a brilliant driver, of a brilliant brother of a brilliant double world champion, twice over, Michael Schumacher, but the way he's staying ahead of David Coulthard. Now, you're getting an indication here of how difficult it is, A, to close up, and B, to do anything about the man in front of you. I'm quite sure that David Coulthard is actually in a faster car, but he gets into the disturbed air behind Ralf Schumacher's Williams, and there's very little he can do about getting past. Ralf Schumacher is on the racing line, and David Coulthard has just got to sit patiently there and wait for him to make a mistake, which he may well not do. And in the Formula 3000 race yesterday, the battle for the lead was finally resolved when, about 30 laps in, the leader did make a mistake, and Junqueira, who won the race, was able to go through.
I would imagine Coulthard will be groaning for 2 reasons. Firstly, he really doesn't need Ralph in front of him because the McLaren is a faster car. And secondly, I know he's carrying a bag of ribs that are not really absolutely ready to do one of the toughest physical Grand Prix of the year. So Coulthard, I think, carrying a few problems inside that car and could do with some clear air, but he hasn't got it, so he'll have to make the best of it.
We're about 1/11th of the way through the race. Lap 6 out of 65. Michael Schumacher leads Mika Häkkinen by an ever-increasing margin. It's now 3 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is 6 seconds behind his brother in 3rd place. David Coulthard is, there you can see the gap, 4th position. Rubens Barrichello in the 2nd Ferrari is 5th, and in 6th position, Jacques Villeneuve, but that's where he started.
That's 5 times in the last lap and a half. Ralf Schumacher's locked up his inside left front, so he'll be paying the price for that later on, especially as almost all of the fast corners around here are right-handers, so your left front is the one that goes in the end and takes the punishment. You're on board with Rubens Barrichello somewhere in turn 10 and the never-ending curve before you arrive into 11, and that's the one where you have to tuck inside and almost hang on to that white line if you can as your guidance. And now sweeping downhill and the big turn 13 ahead of him. Rubens has got a curious pace in the Grand Prix, I think, so far this year. He just seems entirely comfortable to go along at the speed he wants to do. He does not seem to want to take part in the Grand Prix in many ways. And when he was leading the British Grand Prix, you still sense he was very much pacing himself. But nonetheless, it's keeping him relatively up the sharp end. But he's now 10.4 seconds behind his teammate Michael Schumacher up there in the lead, and this could be a good chance for us to take a break.
Lap 9 out of 65 in Spain, no change at the front. Michael Schumacher is 3 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, then 8.7 seconds behind is this battle. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, David Coulthard in the McLaren Mercedes, fighting for 4th place, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who is 5th. Jacques Villeneuve is 6th. 7th and 8th for the two Jordans, Frentzen and Trulli. Jenson Button is still in 9th position, right behind Jarno Trulli. Very close battle between Trulli and Button, and Frentzen with them. And in 10th position, Mika Salo. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar is in 13th place. Johnny Herbert in the second Jaguar is 15th. 19 out of the 22 who started are still running. The retirement, Jean Alesi, Pedro de la Rosa, who had a coming together, and Pedro Diniz, who went off right at the beginning of the race. And Ralf Schumacher and his brother are both in the top 3. Michael leading the race for Ferrari, Ralf 3rd for Williams BMW, sandwiching Mika Häkkinen, the world champion.
Yes, but the last 2 laps now, Mika Häkkinen has started edging back towards Michael Schumacher. He pegged the gap, now he's just creeping back at him. So let's be interesting. There's a 10th now. Michael's pulled a 10th back out on that lap. So it's pretty much even Stevens between the top 2. And then really 3/4 of a second per lap behind are Ralf Schumacher, Coulthard and Barrichello.
And let's just remember the World Championship situation as we watch Rubens Barrichello in that 5th position chasing David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher is 20 points ahead of David Coulthard, the British Grand Prix winner. He's 22 points ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who's won the championship for the last 2 years. And in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari have got a massive 17-point lead over McLaren, with the Williams team in an excellent 3rd position, which they certainly couldn't have expected with their new BMW engine when this season began. They're ahead of Jordan, who took 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship last year, and are sharing 4th with Benetton at the moment. So, lap 10 out of 65. Weather conditions continue to be excellent. The track temperature is creeping up. It started the race round about 23 degrees. It's gone up about 4 or 5 degrees since then. But I don't think that's going to be a great problem, although this Barcelona circuit is extremely tough on tyres. Bridgestone, who are supplying all the tyres here, brought 2 compounds here, a medium one and a soft one. Michael Schumacher is the odd man out at the present moment. He's on the harder compound. Everybody else in the race, except Jos Verstappen, because Pedro de la Rosa is out of it. The 2 arrows started on the harder compound, so there's just 2 on it at the moment. Michael Schumacher, who is leading the race, and Jos Verstappen, who is in 12th place. There's the battle for 3rd. It continues, and David Coulthard, try as he may, and he will be trying, cannot do anything about Ralf Schumacher in front of him. Ralf, his gap between him and his brother is now 10.3 seconds. It's a 2-car race for the lead. The 2 rivals, Michael Schumacher, twice a world champion, and Mika Häkkinen the same. 3.4 seconds between them, so the gap has extended a bit.
Yes, Ralf locking his wheels really into almost every slow corner now, and that'll feed David Coulthard's sort of energy level, because there we're going, we're flicking back on. Look at the speed that Ralf Schumacher came. He started on the grid just behind Barrichello, who you're on board with, You're currently running 5th in this Grand Prix, and the speed with which Ralf Schumacher hooked up that Williams was quite incredible off the line. Barrichello thinking better than going round the outside of Coulthard there. And the Ferrari mechanics, they know they've not got much to do to at least lap 20, I would imagine.
Well, it depends on what the strategies are. I can't see anybody doing a one-stop strategy, it's conceivable. But if they're two stoppers, and last year is anything to go by, we can expect the first stop round about lap 23 and then the second one round about lap 43. On the other hand, if anybody is trying a three-stop strategy, it's going to be in about 5 laps' time that the first stop happens. That's lap 16. And as you heard Martin say earlier on, and you've heard from James Allen, all these things are worked out on computer beforehand. All sorts of variables are fed into it, and they get answers about when they should come in for the fastest possible race time. Three-stop strategy seems to be... Maybe James has got news on that.
Well, I'm down in the McLaren garage, everything nice and easy, very relaxed, but I'm fascinated by this. Schumacher seemed to capitalise on that little lull that I talked about at the top of the show in the softer tyres of Häkkinen. But Häkkinen's managed his very, very well indeed. But there seems to be nothing in it between these two at all. I think they're both carrying a reasonable amount of fuel, and I agree with Martin. I think we're going to see a quite long first stint. It may even be as far as lap 24, possibly 25, before we see the first of these front runners making a stop. What was very interesting to me, guys, is about lap 4 or 5, they were doing laps in the 1 minute 20, mid 124 bracket. Now they've dropped off about half a second. They seem to be just pacing each other, I think. What do you think?
Well, I know that the fastest lap last year was about 1 minute 25 to the nearest 10th. And the race times last year were a couple of seconds slower, 2 or 3 seconds slower than the qualifying times, which you'd expect, of course, because they got a lot less fuel in qualifying. The same sort of situation here. I mean, the leaders are lapping in about 1 minute 25, but Mika Häkkinen has just closed the gap to under 3 seconds, to 2.7 seconds to be exact. And in the same way, as you can see for yourself, David Coulthard is really piling on the pressure on Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. He's closed right up with him. Do you think Ralf Schumacher's hurting his tyres, Martin?
I think without any doubt, because he's really fighting the car hard. He's had so many acrobatic moments. But also Barrichello is catching the pair of them. Louise, what can you tell us?
Just a theory on Ralf Schumacher, as you say, you keep seeing him locking up that car. I don't think he's really got it hooked up quite how he'd like it. Now, he is in the race car, but he had a problem with that car in the warm-up this morning, so he didn't get a chance to run on full tanks. He was actually going to use the T car for the race, but there was a worry over the engine when he went out on the formation lap, so he switched back to the race car. They were actually still adjusting the settings on the grid, so it's obviously not perfect yet. It doesn't seem to be slowing down, but I think it's making the job a lot harder.
Well, I'll tell you this, Ralf Schumacher is slowing, as a result of which David is catching him, and as a result of that, Rubens Barrichello, who is 5th, is closing up on David Coulthard. Not very quickly, but it is happening. There's 15 seconds covering the first 5 at the present moment. We're on lap 14. Hello, here's a replay. Let's see what's happening. It is Ricardo Zonta there, and there is Jos Verstappen. Well, nothing's happening apparently. On they go then, Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard. Now, track temperature is 30 degrees. It's going up all the time. It's gone up 6 degrees since just before the beginning of the Spanish Grand Prix. We're on lap 14, and the 2 McLarens are in 1st and 4th places. Sorry, 2nd and 4th places. The 2 Ferraris are 1st and 5th. Rubens Barrichello will be a very disappointed man, because he had Ralf Schumacher absolutely catapult past him to gain a place, and gain 2 places as a result of getting past David Coulthard. And as Martin has pointed out, Rubens either can't or won't do anything about where he is now. He's over 2 seconds behind the battle between Schumacher and Coulthard. Was closing up a bit. It doesn't seem to be happening anymore. Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR Honda is 17 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, who is in 5th place as the battle for 3rd comes towards us. There you are. You see in the background the Scarlet Ferrari. And we're taking a break now, but we will be back shortly. .49 laps to go at Barcelona. Weather conditions continue to be fine. It actually started to spit with rain at one point this morning, and we looked up into the sky and it was very overcast, and people were saying, oh, we're going to have a wet one. But the clouds are swept away, it's blue overhead. You're looking now at Jensen Button, and he's right up with Jarno Trulli in 8th position, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is in 7th place. So Jensen, who qualified 11th, started 10th after De La Rosa was pushed to the back because of that fuel infringement, is right up with the two Jordans and getting a lot of experience at this circuit. Now you're getting another indication of how difficult it is to pass, because Jensen has actually made up quite a lot of time on the track. He can't do anything about track position at the present moment. Meantime, Michael Schumacher is still over 2 seconds ahead of Häkkinen, who's continuing to inch up on the Ferrari.
Yes, Jensen Button is easily matching the pace of those two Jordans. He held back a little bit the lap before and closed in over a quarter of a second. And it's absolutely clear to see if he could pass them, I think he'd be scampering away, because his teammate running up there in 3rd place is lapping 1.2 seconds per lap faster as the Benetton boys get ready for what will be a very, very early stop. And Fisichella down in 16th place, Wirtz in 14th, and they're on a 3-stopper. They're having an appalling weekend at Benetton.
Yeah, you remember we said that a 3-stopper would be the fastest way to complete this race, and look at the way Jensen Button is pushing Jarno Trulli, who's lost a place in this race already because Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who started behind him, has got ahead of him. You can see the two yellow Jordans together. Now, in Formula One this year, the top teams, of course, are Ferrari and McLaren and Jordan. That's the way they finished at the end of 1999. But this year, to everybody's great surprise, Williams are now the 3rd team. They're ahead of Jordan in the Constructors' Championship. And Jordan have had all sorts of problems with primarily the gearbox, which Mike Gascoigne, their technical director, reckons they have solved. Alex Wirtz comes in from 16th position. Now, Marc Genet has already stopped, unseen by us. Heidfeld has already stopped. Let's see how long it takes. Wheels off, wheels on, fuel in. And the Lollipop Man, and behind him is the sole remaining Prost of Nick Heidfeld, the German driver who's coming from 18th position.
You can see out of the window, and now you can see them on screen, the Williams mechanics are ready too, so I suspect that could be good news for Coulthard in 4th if Ralph's got to come in. Bad news for Ralph. We'll see which one of them it is coming in. That's a shot of a Spanish-sponsored car going a bit sideways, so not too dramatic really. There is a Jordan of Frentzen, and is it going slowly? I've got a feeling the Williams is ahead of that Jordan now. So,
yeah, I think you're right actually, but we'll soon see. Meantime, Michael Schumacher is carving his way round through the field. There he is, and Mika Häkkinen is now under 2 seconds behind the Ferrari as a result of a series of laps marginally quicker than the race leader.
Button in the pits. It was Villeneuve I saw ahead of the Jordan, so Button in for a pit stop at the end of lap 18.
Jensen Button in. You see the Williams mechanics swarming in the centre of your picture there, swarming around the Williams, and the time 7.7 seconds. So he's come in on lap 18. Well, it's either an early 2-stopper or a slightly later 3-stopper. We'll have to work that one out, but meantime, Mika Häkkinen now has got past the Prost, which of course Michael Schumacher had already passed, and that would have eased out the gap. Now we'll see, it was 1.9 seconds, it's now 1.7 seconds. There is Schumacher, here is Häkkinen. Now we wait for Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard with only 0.7 of a second between them, ahead of Rubens Barrichello 5th, and he's closing up on the Williams BMW and on the McLaren Mercedes. Jacques Villeneuve is still 6th.
Yes, I saw the Williams mechanics stay out in the pit lane. I half expected Ralph to come in, but the chief mechanic just waved them back in, so they've all gone back into the garage again. So Williams obviously changing their tactics at the last moment and letting Ralph run a little bit further.
Now, of course, Michael Schumacher in the lead, even if Mika Häkkinen closes up on him. He's going to be a mighty, mighty difficult man to pass. This is Michael Schumacher's 131st Grand Prix. It's Mika Häkkinen's 133rd. Into the pits comes Johnny Herbert from 14th position in the Jaguar, 2 places behind his teammate Eddie Irvine.
Little sip of milk for the Pussycat, a new set of tyres. Johnny Herbert really, again, not having a sparkling weekend. They had a job getting the fuel filler out, you saw there. Johnny away in a cloud of smoke. You know now that his pit limiter's on. His red rain light is flashing away at the rear, so that everybody knows when the drivers are using their pit speed limiter, so they don't use them on the track as traction control. And Johnny feeds back in and is about to be lapped.
And is lapped, but gets out to the track ahead of the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen. So is Johnny Herbert going to be passed by Mika Häkkinen cleanly and quickly? Will he move over and let Häkkinen through, in which case it won't delay the fin? If he does, Mika Häkkinen is going to have a greater gap between him and Michael Schumacher. They're on lap 21, so we're just about at 1/3 distance at the present moment. Nobody in the top 10 has yet stopped for fuel and tyres. The highest man to have stopped is Johnny Herbert, who we've just seen in 13th position come in. He's lost that place, of course. Jenson Button has been in and is now in 14th place. And Michael Schumacher has increased the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen, and it will be increasing yet further because he's ahead of Herbert. Dives into the dust cloud. Somebody's gone off. I think somebody's just put a wheel off the circuit into the dusty bit between the track and the grass. It's very hot and dry here.
Well, Mika Häkkinen, although he's got to clear Johnny Herbert yet, who's now on fresh tyres, of course, and Mika Häkkinen has made a better job of getting through that traffic. The gap now down to just 2.1 seconds between first and second place. Johnny looking in his mirrors. He knows Mika's there because, yes, Johnny gently lifting the throttle. That's the best way to let somebody through without losing too much time yourself. So very correct there from Johnny Herbert. The waved blue flags were there for him anyway. You're allowed to pass 5 of those. If you don't yield in that time, you're given a stop and go penalty. Johnny all too aware of that, but Mika now leapfrogged him, and the gap remains at 2.1 seconds. Well, 2.0 seconds now, look, sorry, at the first sector time in the lap.
There are very few more experienced people. A bit of puff of smoke from the back of Schumacher's Ferrari there. Very few more experienced drivers than Johnny Herbert. He's driven for Tyrrell and Benetton and Lotus and Ligier and Stewart, of course, last year, and now Jaguar.
That's Villeneuve pitting. Villeneuve down the pit lane. I'm expecting also Eddie Irvine in on this lap to see the Jaguar mechanics in the pit lane. No Ferrari or McLaren boys available or in the pit lane or even looking like they're about to walk out. So it seems like both the Ferrari and the McLarens have got enough fuel on board to go deep into the 20-odd laps.
43 laps to go. We're about 1/3 distance. Of course, the last thing that Mika Häkkinen needs is for Michael Schumacher yet again to finish in front of him. Mika Häkkinen has yet to beat Michael Schumacher this year because Schumacher won the first 3 races. I'm sorry, I tell a lie, because he finished ahead of him at Silverstone, of course.
Just before we go to James Allen down in the pits, Michael Schumacher got badly held up there behind there it is, the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine, and the gap now you can see for yourself. Just look how close Mika Häkkinen is to the back of that Ferrari.
Well, now, is Eddie Irvine, ex-Ferrari, going to move over and let his previous team leader through? James Allen, have you got news?
Well, there's unhappiness on the Ferrari pit wall. They were ready for a Michael Schumacher stop. They disconnected his tyres. In fact, he is going to come in. They're running out onto the pit apron now. Schumacher, obviously he's lost a tremendous amount of time, and Ross Brawn obviously agitated about how much he's lost because he could well lose the lead of this race to Mika Häkkinen when he makes this stop on the next lap. I'm amazed by the people at 3 stops, by the way. You were saying before, guys, that it's the fastest way, but it's only the fastest way if you're at the front of the race. It's not if you're in the midfield like the guys who made the stops, the Prosts and the Benettons of this world. I can't understand why they did that today. Incidentally, I'm down in the Ferrari garage, as I say, and I'm standing next to Schumacher's race car. He's out there in the T car today because...
James, I must interrupt you because Jarno Trulli is sitting in a stationary Jordan There's obviously a problem. He's not getting away. Meantime, Schumacher and Häkkinen go through again.
Yeah, Schumacher did not pit at all, so the Ferrari mechanic's still out in the lane. It must be for Barrichello. Maybe they're playing psychology games with McLaren here, but that traffic has cost Michael Schumacher badly. Eddie Irvine's cost him a lot of time in that respect, and now curiously Michael can't stay with Irvine, and Irvine's pulled over to the right hand side. He's clearly received all the blue flags, so Irvine now out of the picture, and that's Ralf Schumacher in from third place before he made that pit stop, and a good stop for him.
And David Coulthard goes up into third position. Barrichello goes to fourth place, and Ralf Schumacher loses track position as he accelerates out of the pit lane. Michael Schumacher has now got Mika Häkkinen on lap 24 right behind him. You can see the gap for yourself. They've both lapped Eddie Irvine, who is down in 15th place, 1 place ahead of his teammate Johnny Herbert. They've both stopped for fuel and tyres. But Schumacher is now only 0.4 of a second. Visually, you can see the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen. And as Martin has said, and James has said, he can very easily lose track position if the Ferrari mechanics fumble his stop in comparison with McLaren. And in comes Michael Schumacher. James.
This is not at all what Ferrari had in mind. They've been very unhappy on the pit wall. I think they were ready for him last time by. In fact, they were. The tyres were out of their blankets. And I think either he went on his own and did another lap, or they didn't get the message through to him, because this isn't what was supposed to happen. Oh dear, oh dear.
Did he hit the marshal? We saw him pull away. The fuel wasn't absolutely out, James. It seemed like the fuel hose wasn't out. Did he run over the marshal?
I don't know about Marshall, but he certainly he's hit something. It's a mechanic. He's hit one of the mechanics. The fuel hose wasn't disconnected. I think it's Nigel Stepney. It is Nigel Stepney, the refueler. He pulled him off his feet as he drove out. Meanwhile, the McLaren boys are ready, and they've just put a stop as well.
Well, that just shows the pressure that's on Michael Schumacher as Nigel Stepney, the English chief mechanic at Ferrari, is helped away. I hope he's not badly hurt. Perhaps it's just a twisted ankle or something like that. But anyway, this will cause confusion and dismay in the Ferrari pit lane. And you can see they're bringing out tyres.
Look, watch now. Look, they lifted the lollipop. They smashed the lollipop down back on Schumacher's cockpit. The fuel hose, they did all the action. The fuel hose didn't come. The lollipop went up. It's the lollipop man's fault. And he slapped it down in front of Schumacher. But he was too busy getting underway. I think Coulthard had a very poor stop. Seemed to get away slowly too. So he won't be able to maximise on having a bit of clear air in front of him and get past Ralf Schumacher. Barrichello could be looking quite strong in all of this.
Lap 26 then. Mika Häkkinen now leads the Spanish Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher has just done the fastest first sector of this 3-sector lap. And oh dear, that is, if James was right, that's Nigel Stepney having his helmet removed. Obviously he's getting medical attention.
And here we go again. Now watch the refueling man. Look, he does the action. The lollipop went up. Michael understandably went. You can't see anything in your mirrors. And look at the lollipop coming back down right in front of Michael Schumacher's visor there. But he just carries on.
Well, it's we mustn't. James, news?
Yeah, it's sad, I'm afraid. Nigel Stepney, it is, in fact, who's the chief mechanic and the refueler. I think he may well have broken his leg. They're just checking it at the moment. An amazing effort by the, obviously, substitute refueler. They only had a lap and a half for him to change the helmet, and basically, obviously, he will practice in case this would happen. But he did a great job for Rubens Barrichello. A slight hesitation in getting the thing off, but a fantastic piece of teamwork there by Ferrari. But they're really on the rack here, boys.
No criticism is due to anybody. Everybody is under the most intense pressure at a pit stop. The driver, of course, the lollipop man, whose responsibility it is to tell the driver by lifting the lollipop, the board on the pole, that everybody is clear of the car. When he lifted it, they weren't clear of the car, and in comes Mika Häkkinen. Now, this could decide the race. Michael Schumacher took 1.3 seconds. Are you there, James?
Yes, I am, Murray, and of course they've got a little bit to play with now. There's a lot of uncertainty and edginess. Very neat and tidy stop so far by McLaren. Quite a bit of fuel went in there. 7.8. No, it's a two-stopper. He'll come in again mid-40s.
Well, now, where is Michael Schumacher as Mika Häkkinen trundles down the pit lane at a mandatory 80 kilometres an hour? Fires the gun and away he goes, and there goes the Ferrari. Now,
Yes, you see, ironically, Murray, I don't think it cost Michael any time. It obviously caused some damage to the mechanic, but Michael was away. And I have to say, from what I've seen so far, it was the lollipop man's fault. Absolutely no question about it, because he did not see that the nozzle was clear of Schumacher's car. Schumacher, in a trigger reaction to that lollipop going up, has gone, he'll wonder what on earth it was doing, flapping around in front of him as he pulled away. I can't really say that I blame Michael for getting away, but then he didn't hesitate, he just went. And I have to say the lollipop man has been a bit overkeen. Of course, we know how intense these pit stops are, Murray. We know races have been won and lost now for some time, and it's all getting a little over-anxious.
Well, you can see how close it is now, because Schumacher and Häkkinen have both had their stop. We're on lap 27. Häkkinen is being held up momentarily by the Minardi, who moves over and lets him through, and there's a changed steering wheel for Jos Verstappen in the Arrows, because all the electrical contacts which govern the hydraulics and so many other things are on that steering wheel, and Louise Goodman is with Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, that's right, Ross. It's all been happening in the pit lane. Jacques has gone out of the race. Jacques, what was the problem?
I don't know, the throttle stopped working, and right away the car caught fire at the same time, so maybe a hydraulic leak, I don't know.
Thanks.
Well, a very resigned sounding Jacques Villeneuve. I said yesterday, and I'll say again today, that the rumours are increasing as Nigel Stepney is removed on the stretcher from the circuit for medical attention in the superb medical centre here. But now Schumacher is 1.7 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen. Ralf Schumacher is still in third position, having stopped. Rubens Barrichello is up into fourth place, ahead of David Coulthard. So David Coulthard, they've all stopped now at least once, and David Coulthard has lost track position. He's down to fifth.
Yes, as I said, I thought Barrichello was going to gain through all of that. He had a good pit stop. Coulthard seemed to have a long pit stop, 11.6 seconds, and slow away to measure. So Ralf Schumacher maintains his third. Barrichello leapfrog Coulthard. Salo now pitting from sixth place. That's going to leave Button in seventh. So Jenson Button has leapfrogged Heinz-Harald Frentzen too in the only Jordan. Truly, we saw him in the pits having some kind of problem finding neutral and being able to draw away. He's back down there in 14th place. That leaves the two Jaguars of Irvine and Herbert 12th and 13th.
And Michael Schumacher goes through as Mika Häkkinen increases speed. He's just done the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 24.4, compared with last year 1:24.9, which was Michael Schumacher. The cars are faster this year, no doubt about that, but it's slower, of course, than Fisichella's all-time lap record, 1997 in the Jordan. Now, riding with Barrichello here.
Now he's the one putting pressure on Ralf Schumacher, but amazingly I didn't see any traffic in front of the two leaders, and Mika Häkkinen a clear 9/10 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher on that previous lap when he did the new fastest lap of the race. But you can see how close Barrichello's getting there in turn 4 to Ralf. They're just wandering around. You can see they can't really get on the power, and there's just not enough grip in the slow corners. As I was saying earlier, I drove an older Formula 1 car in the week with wide track and slick tyres, and I've been sure for some time that these narrow track groove tyres are not the way to go. They're not exciting for the drivers, and I have to say it absolutely confirmed it for me to drive an older style Formula 1 car.
Right, well, we're in fourth position with Barrichello. Third ahead of us in the white and blue Williams is Ralf Schumacher, who's coming up behind and now going past Mazzacane in the Minardi, and Barrichello does the same thing to lap the Argentine driver, tucks into the apex, and still Ralf Schumacher, after his pit stop in the Williams, in which he's already had one podium position this year in the Australian Grand Prix, and has scored in other races as well, holds his third position, crosses the line. Michael Schumacher now is getting towards half distance in the lead, and here is the battle. Here is the battle between Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen, and it's a very, very close one. And I remind you that Mika Häkkinen, in order to increase his hopes of getting 3 World Championships in a row, and he's 22 points behind Michael Schumacher at the present moment, has got somehow now to get ahead of the German and get on a possible 10 World Championship points for a win, as opposed to 6 World Championship points for a second place. Now Schumacher is coming up to Nick Heidfeld in the Prost, who is in 5th position. And if Heidfeld doesn't see him and move over, then there he is, you see. And Häkkinen is going to be swarming all over Michael Schumacher's gearbox. Well, he's nearly there now. Coming out of the right-hander, accelerating away. Attack, 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 a maximum attack, as Mika Häkkinen himself says. Through to complete the lap. Now, this is where Michael Schumacher can close right up on, but I do not think get past Nick Heidfeld.
Heidfeld should lift, but he hasn't done, has he? He's going to make Michael work for it. Now he lifts. Will he tuck in front of Häkkinen? No, he sees Häkkinen coming too. So often people lift, they don't know there's a second or third car behind and can chop across your nose, and Häkkinen was necessarily cautious there. Michael Schumacher just slightly getting the better of that. The gap was 0.6 of a second as they went over the line. I wonder if we'll see a split part the way through the lap, but anyway, we can see the gap for ourselves as they have that small downhill braking into turn 5.
And on lap 31 out of 65, both Williams BMWs are in the points, because Jenson Button is ahead of Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan and is in 6th position. Ralf Schumacher is 3rd, Jenson Button is in 6th position, and you're watching the 2 top men of the day. Michael Schumacher, twice a world champion, Mika Häkkinen, twice a world champion, fighting for the lead in Spain with half the race still to go. In 3rd position, Ralf Schumacher ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who seemingly can do nothing about the Williams BMW ahead of him, notwithstanding the fact that he's in a works Ferrari. 5th position is David Coulthard, who's tucked up right behind Barrichello's rear wing. In 6th position is Jenson Button, 5 seconds ahead of Frentzen, who is 6 seconds ahead of Salo in 8th position. 9th is Zonta, 10th is Wurz.
Well, the lap times are all over the place, Murray. We saw Häkkinen do a 24.4 in some clear air, clearly with a fresh set of boots on just after his pit stop, but now they're in the late 25s again. As James pointed out earlier in the race, the pace is slightly curious. Maybe a good time to take a break. Be back shortly.
This is the half-distance lap at Barcelona, Spain, and there are the leaders, and you can see how close they are. Michael Schumacher leading Mika Häkkinen. They are 17 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is continuing to stave off Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari in 4th position. There's only 0.6 of a second between them. It's as close for 3rd and 4th as it is for 1st and 2nd that you are looking at. David Coulthard has lost track position. He's down in 5th place. And Jenson Button in the 2nd Williams BMW is in the points in a magnificent 6th position, having qualified in 11th place. I was talking to him this morning. I said, what about the rumours that you have already signed for Williams BMW next year? Is it true? And he gave a little smile and said nothing. So I said, when are we going to get the news? And he said, I haven't got a clue. He didn't confirm whether I was right or wrong, but I'm sure Britain will be hoping that I am right. And Michael Schumacher leads Mika Häkkinen, so less than half a race still to go.
Yes, Jenson taking a bit of a hiding in one or two of the British press today. They've obviously decided very kindly his honeymoon period is over, which is nice of them, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his focus as you're watching a slow-mo replay of 3rd, 4th and 5th, Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello and Coulthard. And back on track now, Michael Schumacher heading down into turn 1 with Mika Häkkinen clearly in hot pursuit.
James, news?
Yes, it's a tough job trying to make Michael Schumacher make a mistake, but of course Häkkinen did that at the Nürburgring 2 years ago. Will he do it today? I'm not sure that he necessarily needs to, guys. They both stopped in the mid-20s. Schumacher stopped lap 24, Häkkinen lap 26. They took on more or less exactly the same amount of fuel, which is good enough for 17 laps. That means I reckon that Schumacher's going to come in again on lap 41 with Häkkinen 43. That gives him 2 laps to win this motor race, because he'll put the hammer down and try and build up enough of an advantage on that second stop to get out in front. It's going to be absolutely fantastic.
And between now and lap 41, there are 7 laps of this nose-to-tail battle between the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen, the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher.
And what Häkkinen will not know, and maybe even Michael Schumacher actually, is that Michael's got an effectively a different crew to normal to refuel that car when it comes in. They're going to be slightly tentative as Michael hurtles towards them. They're the first pit as well. You can see your own car coming in, 160, 170 miles an hour, as he slams the brakes on to get down to 80 k's, 50 miles an hour before he approaches the pit garage, and they are very much the first people in the pit lane, and they'll be very, very nervous when Michael comes in for this stop.
Well, we know that Michael Schumacher was conserving tyres during the practice and qualifying periods. We know that he's on the medium compound Bridgestone, whereas Mika Häkkinen is on the softer one. We know that tyres degrade very rapidly here at Barcelona, although they weren't so bad in the warm-up this morning. Any theories on that?
I think it's nip and tuck between all of these tyres, and has been for some races now. I think they're choosing the tyres based on balance of getting the sliding of the front and the rear of the car more balanced up, more equal if you like, and I think that's the decision the data they're basing their decision on, and I don't think it will affect them too much as the Grand Prix unfolds.
Well, just look at this. This is the battle for third, fourth, fifth, and it's the Williams BMW, the Ferrari, and the McLaren Mercedes. We ride with Rubens Barrichello, fourth position, chasing Ralf Schumacher. The magnificent Ralf Schumacher, who again, as he did on his first set of tyres, locks up the left front. It doesn't seem to be slowing him or distressing him at all. He's staying ahead. I said yesterday that it's worth repeating that this is a first generation BMW engine on their return to Formula One. And I was talking to Dr. Mario Tyson, who is the technical chief of Munich, yesterday, and he was telling me that they've got a second generation, a smaller, lighter engine, like the Mercedes, like the Honda, like the Ferrari, in the pipeline. I doubt that it'll be out this year, but they're doing jolly well on the existing one, because look at Ralf Schumacher, if anything, increasing the gap over himself and Rubens Barrichello.
Well, good news from down in the pit lane. Nigel Stepney has nothing broken. That's the Ferrari chief mechanic, who was pretty much walloped as Michael Schumacher came out of the pits. We saw him being carted off to hospital. He has nothing broken.
I know that Nigel is a fanatical fitness man. He goes skiing all through the winter. He lives in Italy, of course, and he goes skiing all through the winter, because you have to be mighty fit to handle that very, very heavy fuel hose. He's the chief mechanic. He regards it, and rightly so, as an enormously responsible job, and he takes that responsibility himself, and in order to handle it, he keeps as fit as he possibly can. And you can see now the Ferrari closing up on Jarno Trulli, who is in 14th position as Schumacher, Barrichello, David Coulthard, 5th position, Williams, Ferrari, McLaren battle for third place, and Mika Häkkinen continues to circulate behind Michael Schumacher, 7/10 of a second behind him at the present moment, on lap 37 out of 65. Fastest lap so far, Mika Häkkinen, 1:24.47, which is faster than Michael Schumacher's fastest lap last year, but slower, of course, than Fisichella's 97-lap record.
Well, this little batch of three in third, fourth and fifth place are actually catching the leaders who you're looking at now. Michael only by a tenth or two per lap, but another strange take on the pace of this race as Michael Schumacher homes into a lap for what must be Jarno Trulli, who pulls nicely out of the way, and Mika closer than ever, look.
Yeah, you've just got to take your opportunity, because Mika would have seen, just as Michael Schumacher could see, that the Ferrari was closing up on, and he's having another look here, closing up on the Jordan, and he would have said to himself, this could be my opportunity if Michael Schumacher delays a second. I remember that fantastic passing move when Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari took the lead in Hungary from Ayrton Senna's McLaren, and it could have been a similar situation there, but it wasn't.
Yes, I think more mischief really from Mika there, just saying, look, I'm here, remember I'm here. And there's really no way through on that corner, I have to say, unless it all ends in tears, because for sure you'll slide into the side. He would have slid right into the side of that Ferrari.
Lap 38 and 17 are still running. Retirements in order. Pedro Diniz out first. Alesi and De La Rosa came together and retired. As far as I know, they're perfectly all right. Jacques Villeneuve, you heard from Louise Goodman, has retired probably because of a hydraulics problem, having started 6th. That's Alexander Wurz leading the pits. Jos Verstappen is out of the race, so both the Arrows that were actually the fastest cars on the track yesterday in terms of all-out speed, De La Rosa the fastest and Verstappen the second, are both sadly out of the Spanish Grand Prix. 17th last and lapped Marc Genet. Mazzacane has been lapped, Heidfeld has been lapped, Jarno Trulli has been lapped. Now, Johnny Herbert is the last driver on the track not to have been, and he's in 13th position, just behind his teammate Eddie Irvine, who is 12th. And there is Johnny Herbert as I speak in the Jaguar, and coming up behind him, soon to lap him, Schumacher and Häkkinen.
Now watch as Schumacher brakes. He submarines and goes down slightly in the car, and all the drivers do that. It just gives you an idea of the energy that's going on. So if you watch that as they come into the big braking areas, you'll notice their crash helmet sinks down slightly into the cockpit as their body is literally submarining under 3.5 or 4G deceleration.
They're both driving a magnificent race. Mika Häkkinen is applying the pressure remorselessly. Michael Schumacher is resisting it remorselessly. Completes his 39th lap, goes into his 40th lap, as into the pit lane comes Johnny Herbert for his second pit stop. The Jaguar mechanics swarm around the car. Off come the front and rear wheels. On goes the fuel filler. And that red board you see going down onto the side pod is to prevent any petrol or petrol vapor getting through onto the exhaust system, and in comes David Coulthard from 5th position.
I think it's probably a smart move by McLaren for Coulthard there, because he was clearly losing time tucked up behind Barrichello, who was chasing Ralf Schumacher, and that may give him, they've calculated that should put him out into some clear air with a bit of luck, although I've just seen 2 cars going past. That may give Coulthard a chance to leapfrog Ralph and Rubens.
Yeah, I think it was a Jordan and the Minardi, so it was... couldn't spot which ones it was, but there we are, out, and here come the leaders, Schumacher and Häkkinen. And they're on their 40th lap. There are still 25 laps to go in this race, which is going to be so crucial for the World Championship. Because if Michael Schumacher can finish ahead of Häkkinen and increase his championship lead by another 4 points, it's going to be mighty depressing at minimum for McLaren.
Yes, I noticed that as Coulthard rejoined the track, Jenson Button was coming along, the 6th place man, so clearly McLaren waited until they could be sure Coulthard wouldn't lose track position to Jenson Button and then board him in, but Ferrari mechanics tentatively ready. And I wonder which one of them is coming, and we're assuming it must be Michael coming in first. But actually, we're hearing it's Barrichello. Barrichello, they're getting held up slightly in the coming into the pits there. So Ferrari have reacted to Coulthard's pit stop in the McLaren. And so, look, is that Ralf Schumacher who's in the pits?
I just saw the Williams very quickly, but that's a very bad pit stop for Barrichello, and I'm pretty sure it's going to cost him his position, and that David Coulthard will regain 4th position.
No, I don't think he will. Coulthard's gone past. Actually, yeah, there's Coulthard. How will they come out? Look, it's absolutely touch and go. Gone, David, down the outside, and Ralph is going to have to defend the inside, and does so brilliantly. Ralf Schumacher, very aware of this, but he didn't make it. Coulthard went around the outside. That was a brilliant awareness by Ralf Schumacher, but he couldn't just make the difference, and that has popped Coulthard up into 3rd place.
So David Coulthard gains not 1 but 2 places. He goes from 5th to 4th to 3rd as quickly as you can say it. Rubens Barrichello there and is down in 5th position with the Williams BMW in front of him.
Well, the Ferrari and Williams pit stop was a direct reaction as Michael Schumacher comes in for his 2nd run. James?
They're both in, guys. Oh, your heart has to go out to Andrea Vaccari, the new stand-in fuel man. If he makes a mistake of this, he'll lose the race, and he has
not in. He's made a mistake.
The hose is not properly yet. Häkkinen goes, he leads the motor race, and Vaccari's blown it for Ferrari. What a tragedy for him.
What cruel luck for Ferrari and for the new refueler. He will be in an agony agony over that. You can't really blame him. This is the first time he's done it under the colossal stress of race conditions. But there goes Mika Häkkinen rejoining the track, followed by Eddie Irvine, followed by Johnny Herbert. We wait for the Ferrari to rejoin, and look at the gap as coming up behind them are Barrichello and Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher. So it's cost Ferrari and Michael Schumacher dear, and Mika Häkkinen is leading and looking very good to win the Spanish Grand Prix and his first victory of the year 2000. Here he is.
Well, James, you said something I thought was absolutely correct. They will have practiced with a reserve. Jenson Button in for a stop. Looks a reasonably long one, 9.2. Not too bad, but probably a second and a half longer than it should have been. But you said, James, I'm sure they've practiced with a spare refueler. But if they have, he certainly wasn't ready for the job when it mattered most.
And Mika Häkkinen comes up behind the Benetton, and it's Alexander Wurz, who is in 13th position. Now, the gap between Schumacher and Häkkinen, we'll have to wait and see, both visually and in terms of time, until the end of this lap. But I should think it's a good 3 or 4 seconds, and that is a massive amount, particularly as between Mika Häkkinen and Schumacher are the two Jaguars and one of the Benettons.
I reckon it'll be nearer 10 seconds, Murray. He was stationary a long time.
Right.
He's coming over the line now. It's 10.2. Lucky guess there from me. But now I'm looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to this, because now we'll see if Michael Schumacher's got anything up his sleeve. And he's got 23 laps to pull that 10-second deficit back. He's got a comfortable championship lead in his pocket, but he does not need these McLarens coming back at him so early in the season, especially now Coulthard is up into third. And now you're going to see what James was taking you through. He hasn't got it on. He's been in the pits a long time. The wheels are already finished, look. Tyre change already finished before the refuelling even started. And that's why Michael Schumacher's gone from 6/10 ahead in this motor race to 10.2 seconds behind.
Well, the new refueler took a tentative dip at the fuel hose, pulled it out, pushed it back again, and that has cost Michael Schumacher the lead. You
touched on the refuelers having to be big guys, Murray, because when that hose is full of fuel and with all the gubbins on the end of it and the valves, I think it weighs several tens of kilos to lump. It's quite a clumsy thing to lump around, and then of course you've got to get it on square.
Yeah, you need a man actually to position it in the fuel outlet and someone else behind you to carry the weight of the hose. One man cannot do it. Now the gap is 10.2 seconds. David Coulthard is closing up on Michael Schumacher. He's under 6 seconds behind. Now here are the positions. Häkkinen on lap 44 leads. Schumacher by now 11 seconds. David Coulthard is less than 5 seconds behind the Ferrari in third place. Ralf Schumacher is fourth. Fifth is Barrichello. Sixth is Salo. We're going for a break, but we'll be back quickly. Jarno Trulli exiting the pit lane. He came in 10th position in the Jordan. His teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 9th position. It's not a happy race for Jordan. It's not a very happy race for Ferrari at the present moment, because Michael Schumacher, who had led and who you are looking at now, is now nearly 14 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen and losing ground to David Coulthard, who's within 2 seconds of the Ferrari. Has Michael Schumacher got a problem? And Rubens Barrichello is in 5th position in the second Ferrari.
You see Coulthard there homing in. He took 1.8 seconds out of Michael Schumacher on the last lap alone. So I don't know whether Michael was a bit dispirited after all of the dramas of the afternoon. Both pit stops have been a disaster, as you've seen for yourself. And Coulthard now with a second win, homing in. Now he's managed to clear the Schumacher-Barrichello fight. He's lapping 1 to 1.5 seconds a lap faster than them. That gives you a very clear indication of just how much time these cars lose when they're following each other in the dirty air of the slipstream.
Well, you saw Mika Salo there. He was in 6th position as he came into the pits. And now look at David Coulthard. When the cameraman pulls back a bit, you'll see the McLaren right behind the Ferrari. There it is. This is the battle for second position now. Mika Häkkinen is well and truly on his way. Nearly 14 seconds on lap 47 out of 65 ahead of the Ferrari.
One thing Michael Schumacher knows is that Coulthard's not scared to have a go at him. Coulthard passed him in the 98 British Grand Prix, and last year Barge passed him. And look at the speed that Coulthard's got. He's in the slipstream. Can he duck down the inside? Michael covering his ground. David having to yield. Don't fall off the end of the track, David. But Michael wrestling that Ferrari through turn 2. And you won't go around there, David. But Michael now really, and David at least knows when he gets anywhere near the slipstream a little bit earlier on the pit straight, he can take a good run down the inside of Michael Schumacher. A lot of brake dust coming out of the back of Schumacher's car, and well, he's really carrying that Ferrari at the moment, isn't he?
Well, they're coming up behind Jarno Trulli, who's 14th, Johnny Herbert, who is 13th, Eddie Irvine, who is in 12th position in the second Jaguar. There's a lot of traffic ahead of them. This could be David Coulthard's opportunity to nip past Michael Schumacher if Michael gets it wrong in terms of lapping the 3 cars in front of him. But Michael Schumacher will know that just as well as David Coulthard does. And if there was any question of David Coulthard's application, you're seeing the answer to it now.
Yeah, but he needs to stay calm. Just stay in position. Don't try and pull any moves in these next 2 or 3 corners. Just get totally ready for the straight. I believe Schumacher's lost a lot of straight line speed. Something's happened in Schumacher's car that's hampering him even between turns 9 and 10. Coulthard was homing in on him down the straight, so if he gets in the slipstream, it's so difficult to stay close behind in that corner. Now, is he close enough? I believe he is, to have a serious go at the end. If there he coming in the slipstream, look, oh, Schumacher's heading towards the corner. David can only just make it when he gets there. Can he get around the outside? Yes, he can.
Fabulous, fabulous move by David Coulthard, who passes Michael Schumacher on the outside. Not on the inside, on the outside of the corner. Now that certainly indicates to me that Michael Schumacher has got some sort of a problem. David Coulthard, a magnificent passing manoeuvre. Here it is again. Watch him as Michael Schumacher looks in his mirror to the right, moves across to the right. David Coulthard moves to the left and just drives straight round the Ferrari, as he did to Barrichello in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
Well, Michael's very aware that you can only move across the track once. He told us in an interview just today, didn't he, earlier on in the show, and that for the 2nd consecutive race, Coulthard sweeps around the outside of a Ferrari, but I believe that particular Ferrari is limping a little.
Well, to keep the World Championship alive, this is what was needed in Formula One. McLaren fighting back magnificently, and now they are not only first, but they're second as well on a maximum 16 World Championship points in the Constructors' Contest, with 10 for Mika Häkkinen, 6 for David Coulthard, if they stay where they are now, lap 49 out of 65.
Yes, anybody following Ralf Schumacher today will have streaming eyes from all the burning tyre rubber smoke coming back towards them. Ralf, his tyres must look like 50-pence pieces when they take them off at the pit stops, but they're still neck and neck. Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello, they're just 0.6 of a second apart. They've gone over the line, back in 4th and 5th, and Coulthard now 20.6 seconds behind leader Häkkinen, and he's still got 17 laps left to be having a go at that gap too. Coulthard seeming to have a car that's working very well on this 3rd set of tyres.
Yes, because don't think that just because Mika Häkkinen has won the World Championship twice in the last 2 years, that this means to say that he has precedence over David Coulthard in the McLaren team. They have equal conditions, and David Coulthard will want to win this Spanish Grand Prix as he won at Silverstone, just as much as Mika Häkkinen does. Perhaps even more after the dreadful happenings that David Coulthard has already had this week. He's totally focused on this race. You can see that if anything, he's mildly, very mildly, stretching his lead as we ride with Michael Schumacher, 3rd place.
Have a look at this, Murray. The next man behind Michael is now his brother, just 4.3 seconds back and gaining at 2 seconds per lap. So Michael has, I'm sure, got some kind of problem, and he's now falling back into the hole there. There's Ralf. I can't see Michael down the road, but
well, but right behind Ralf is the 2nd Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. So we've got Michael Schumacher Ferrari 3rd, being caught by his brother. Mazzacane, as you see, getting a 10-second penalty, but he's already in 16th position and a lap down. It's not going to affect the race at all. But Rubens Barrichello Barrichello now is forcing as hard as he can. He can't feel particularly happy about this Spanish Grand Prix so far because Barrichello started third on the grid.
There's Michael Murray just ahead of them, look, yes. Cool, Michael Schumacher now, he was 2.7 seconds ahead only as they crossed the start-finish line, and now he can't be much more than, what, just over a second, so clearly limping along.
Yeah, he's obviously got a problem. Of course, you can only hypothesise. We don't know whether whether the tyres have gone off, which is pretty unlikely, or whether he's got a gearbox problem or something to do with the engine. I don't think he's unsettled after the fuel filling problems he's had. It's got to be a car problem.
I think he's down on power, to be honest. I suspect that's his problem. Either he's missing, he could be missing again, James.
Schumacher goes through, Ralph is going through, puts his wheels on the curb, Michael fights back, and Barrichello closes up on both of them, and Ralph Schumacher is stretching ahead. This is a brotherhood relay. Barrichello goes through. Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Barrichello takes both of them. Michael goes down to 5th place, and Ralph Schumacher goes to 4th, and into the pits comes Michael Schumacher.
Just go through the morals of that. He had to shuffle his brother out of the way to let his teammate through. What a terrible position to find yourself in. But Michael did it. He stuffed his brother to help his teammate.
Well, is this tyres, Martin? Because there goes Michael Schumacher again from 5th position. Well, on goes a new set of boots. He's going to be lucky to finish in the points at the present moment. Well, Jenson Button is back in 6th position. So a very happy race for Williams, because now both their cars are in the top 6, although Ralph Schumacher is down from 3rd, which he held for so long, to 4th as a result of that fantastic battle we've just seen between himself, Barrichello, and Michael Schumacher, which was resolved in the favour of Rubens Barrichello, who's shot up to 3rd position in the Ferrari. Now, his lap times are slower than those of both Hakkinen and Coulthard, and the gap...
Sorry, Murray, just watch this. Look, Michael just made Ralph work for it, work for it, work for it. Then he wouldn't yield, even though he knew he was coming in the pit, and still kept going up the inside. I think they just about touch in the middle of the corner. Look, and that lets Rubens through on the inside. They say blood is thicker than water, but that's certainly not been the case through those 3 corners, as Michael gives as hard a time as he can to that Williams of Ralph Schumacher. Look, now he's going to hold him out. He comes into turn 10, and turn 11, rather, he pushes him out, holds him out, look, and lets, I can only assume that was entirely intentional, and lets the other Ferrari through on the inside.
And hats off, incidentally, to our television producer, because he has to decide what pictures you're going to see, and he certainly chose the right ones there with those replays, as Bob McMurray in the McLaren pit smiles at the way things are going, as well he might do, because his man Mika Hakkinen is leading, his man David Coulthard is 2nd. McLaren Mercedes are 1st and 2nd in the Spanish Grand Prix, looking good for 16 points. We're on lap 52, 13 laps to go. Barrichello is slower than both the men ahead of him. It's looking good for McLaren.
Well, what will be interesting to see next is, can Jenson Button start homing in on Michael Schumacher? He's currently 11.7 seconds behind him. Michael down to 5th place, Button in 6th in the BMW Williams. And can he now start attacking the man who's currently leading the World Championship, who's about to get a bit of a dent in his points lead?
Yeah, right, we're going to take a break, but rejoin us for the rest of the Spanish Grand Prix when we're back. Well, after all the drama in Spain, we see a very familiar situation. We're actually looking at David Coulthard, but we were looking at Mika Hakkinen in the lead in the Spanish Grand Prix on lap 55 out of 65. 10 laps to go then, and he's 22 seconds ahead of his teammate David Coulthard, who crosses the line now, about 32 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. It's looking as though McLaren are on a 1-2 as they were in Britain. 16 points to close the World Championship up considerably. Exciting times.
But I was wrong about Michael Schumacher having an engine problem, because with that change of tyres, he's now back on the kind of leading pace that he was sharing with Mika Häkkinen and pulling away from Jenson Button in 6th place. So Michael maybe had a slow puncture or something like that, but he just seemed very, very slow down the straights too.
So on lap 55, let's take time out to establish clearly the top 10 as you watch race leader Mika Häkkinen, 22 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, 33 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, 2 McLarens lead, Ferrari third, Ralf Schumacher is 3 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari in 4th place, and 18 seconds ahead of his brother Michael in the 2nd Ferrari, which is 5th. Jenson Button in the points for Williams again. He's already had 2 World Championship points finishes in his first 4 races. He's in 6th place. 7th is Frentzen, 8th is Salo, 9th is Zonta, and in 10th position Fisichella. There are 17 cars running out of the 22 who started. 11th is Wurz, 12th and 13th the 2 Jaguars of Eddie Irvine, running reliably but not quickly enough. They've both been lapped. Jarno Trulli in the Jordan is in 14th position. Both the Jordans are still running, neither of them in the points. Genet in the Minardi is 15th. His teammate Mazzacane is in 16th position, been lapped twice. Nick Heidfeld in the Prost is 17th and he's been lapped twice. The retirements in order of retiring: Pedro Diniz, De La Rosa and Alesi together when they collided. Jacques Villeneuve out with a hydraulic problem in the BAR. Jos Verstappen, I would guess, an electrical problem because he came in and changed his steering wheel unsuccessfully. And so those are the 5 retirements. And now we're on lap 56 out of 65, 9 to go, riding with Michael Schumacher. No, riding with Rubens Barrichello, I apologise, in 3rd place. Closing up on David Coulthard by about 0.4 of a second a lap. But as he is some 10 seconds behind the McLaren, which passed him in that fantastic move we saw a few laps ago, I have to say it's not looking good for Ferrari. But there is David Coulthard ahead.
Yes, I'm not absolutely sure that's David Coulthard ahead. If he is, he's in trouble because he should be 10-odd seconds down the road, Murray. Coulthard, I think, had traffic on the previous lap. Haven't seen anything to suggest he's got a problem on this lap. In fact, he is over the... Coulthard's just gone over the line, so that is a car ahead that's about to be lapped, I think you'll find, Murray.
Yeah, you're right. We'll spot who it is. As over the line goes Rubens Barrichello down to turn 1. He's doing the thick end of 200 miles an hour now as he shifts down into 3rd gear, 80 miles an hour on the apex, into turn 2, up to about 110 miles an hour, still accelerating round turn 3, the double 90, and we can see soon who it... Oh, it's the Jaguar of Johnny Herbert that he's coming up to lap. Johnny Herbert in 13th place has already been lapped, of course, by Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard. Rubens Barrichello there in 3rd position. Well, Barrichello was 2nd in Australia and 4th in the San Marino Grand Prix. He's had a couple of retirements, and that is Nick Heidfeld, 17th and last, after his 4th pit stop. He's had all sorts of problems, and his teammate Jean Alesi was out of the race a long time ago. Prost is probably the unhappiest Grand Prix team this year because all their promise of the past seems to have evaporated. The car is unreliable, they're not getting testing miles, and as a result of that they can't build speed.
I'm sure Jordan will be too happy, or Benetton for that matter. Jordan came to this, the 5th race also of last season, with 16 points already in the bag, and they arrived there this weekend with just 8, and neither of their cars looking anywhere near a points finish at the moment, and they're going to need unreliability if they're going to get points today. So Jordan, and I think particularly Benetton, have really slipped back down the field since their early pace back in Brazil.
Well, what lessons do you think we can learn about McLaren and Ferrari? Because I was convinced when this race began that there was nothing in it between them in terms of performance. I think Schumacher suffered obviously because of those 2 failed pit stops of his, but Barrichello really hasn't been in the race.
No, he hasn't, has he? Once again, not demonstrated raw pace. I think we felt earlier in the season the McLaren did have the upper edge on pace, even though Michael won the first 3 races. I think actually, had Michael got away in Silverstone and not been held up just off the line trying to pass Häkkinen, he would have been a serious threat to win that race. Michael, I think, probably had the edge in Silverstone with the strategy they were running. And today, we said at the beginning of the show, it was going to be very, very close. There's virtually nothing between Ferrari and McLaren. But I thought the Ferrari had the slight edge. Michael pulled away. That looked to be correct for a while. And then he's really just faded.
Well, you've just seen Rubens Barrichello in third position, lapping Eddie Irvine, who is in 12th place, having already passed the other Jaguar of Johnny Herbert. And Mika Häkkinen is on his 59th lap now, 20 seconds, or 20.7 seconds ahead of Coulthard, who continues to lap faster and quite significantly faster than Häkkinen. But that 20 seconds gap is not going to be closed by Coulthard unless Häkkinen's got a problem, and I don't think he has.
What can you tell us, James, about the Ferrari performance?
I'm in the Ferrari garage now, Martin, and you were probably right. I mean, they've just taken the tyres off now, and one of them has a considerably lower pressure than the other three. They're sure that they were equal when they put them on the car, but they're saying it doesn't appear to be punctured. They can't understand how it lost pressure during the race, but that for sure was the problem, and that's why he was so slow coming out of that final corner onto the long straightaway. And obviously now he's got a new set of tyres on, and away he goes. Very strange day indeed down here in the Ferrari garage.
Well, as an ex-tyre employee, I can only hypothesise that it is a faulty bead in the tyre. More of that later, maybe, and maybe not. Lap 60 now, 5 laps to go. Häkkinen can pace himself now to his first victory of the year 2000, his first 10-point finish, and to close up the gap in points between himself and Michael Schumacher by a minimum of 8 points, because Michael Schumacher's only on 2 points at the present moment. He looks as though he should get them, because he's pulling away from Jenson Button, who looks like getting his 3rd points finish in his 5th Grand Prix in his short career. It's an incredible performance if he does, and Williams can be rightly proud of themselves, BMW can be rightly proud of themselves. But McLaren, I can just visualise Ron Dennis, because after they'd finished first and second in Britain, Ron smiled quietly at Louise Goodman when she was interviewing him and said, not bad. Well, he's probably going to be saying the same thing again, but not bad would be a masterpiece of understatement. It would be a quite magnificent victory for McLaren, for Adrian Newey, who designed the car, for Mario Ilian, who designed the Mercedes-Benz V10 engine, and for everybody who'd been associated with it. Not least, of course, Bridgestone for supplying the tyres. And Mika Häkkinen crosses the line now. He's on his 61st lap now. 5 laps to go.
Well, it's surely a great and very consistent drive by young Jenson Button back there in 6th, but I think you'll find him be slightly disappointed. He's actually 35 seconds behind his teammate, and that's really how he's got to judge his afternoon. So another point in the bag, but some valuable experience, but I think he'd be just a touch disappointed.
So behind those top 6, the top Jordan is 13 seconds, driven by Heinz-Harald Frentzen behind Jenson Button, and not looking good for a point. Everybody else has been lapped at least once, and Mazzacane has been lapped twice in the Minardi. Heidfeld has been lapped 3 times in the Prost. He's the last runner. Everybody else has been lapped once. Into the pits comes Johnny Herbert from that lowly 14th position, 2 places behind Eddie Irvine. Well, hopefully Jaguar have now got reliability. What they have to build, and they know it as well as I do, is speed. They have a completely revised management structure that's been announced here in Spain, with Neil Ressler having been taken over, has taken over at the top. And there's a very strong board, including Wolfgang Reitzler, Jonathan Browning and Richard Parry Williams. Now there's going to be a lot of strength at Jaguar. They've got their own wind tunnel now being built, but it's a long, long haul. And when you remember that the team that they've in effect taken over, which was Stewart, actually won a race last year, indicates that Jaguar have still got a great, great deal to do as we watch Mika Häkkinen, lap 62, and David Coulthard is continuing to catch him. But then Mika Häkkinen did exactly the same thing to Coulthard at Silverstone. to finish second, about 1.5 seconds behind David Coulthard. I think Häkkinen is pacing himself to victory.
Absolutely, without doubt. There's no way David, on matching pace for pace, could pull that kind of gap back, and they'll both be nursing their cars and changing 300-400 revs earlier, not braking too late, just keeping it all smooth. And Mika now lapping some 2.8 seconds slower than his fastest lap of the race, set earlier on at a 1:24.4. Just a recap on the race: Michael Schumacher got away beautifully from pole position. Häkkinen starting well. Ralf Schumacher having a blinding start. Barrichello falling back to 5th. Then, as they went through, the key moment of the race was Michael Schumacher's pit stop, where the refueling rig did not come out, although they lifted the lollipop and sent him on his way, causing some damage, causing a lot of uncertainty. That then wrecked his second pit stop and put Mika Häkkinen with this clear lead. Michael Schumacher appears then had a slow puncture. Coulthard had a good run at him. McLaren doing a good job to get Coulthard back out ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello to give him track position. They then were able to maximise on that by passing Michael when he had that slow puncture. So 1 and 2 is how they've ended up, with now just 3 laps left to run.
And let us remember too the terrible pressure that David Coulthard has been under all this week, and in the build-up to the Spanish Grand Prix he's had to keep himself focused, concentrate on the racing, forget the dreadful happening at Lyon Airport, put that behind him and ignore the press pushing and shoving to get at him and demand stories from him at a time when he was under enormous mental pressure. My heart goes out to him, and particularly, of course, to the families of the 2 pilots who perished in that tragic crash. So we're on lap 63 now. There is Ron Dennis with Pat Prix on the right, sitting calmly and confidently, just waiting for those last couple of laps to unfold. We're on lap 63 now. Mika Häkkinen is about to start the 64th and penultimate lap of the Spanish Grand Prix of 2000.
Jenson Button has stopped. Button has stopped. We think it's an engine problem. Haven't seen it on the screen. I'm hearing from James down in the pits. He's seen or heard something. I'm expecting you'll see it anytime soon. What a shame. Button dropping out of that point scoring. There it goes, coming out of turn 9. And,
engine.
That's for sure.
And that means to say that Jordan look as though they are going to get a World Championship point after all. Heinz-Harald Frentzen moves up into 6th position for 1 World Championship point. And Mika Häkkinen driving onwards now. 7th is Salo, 8th is Zonta, 9th is Fisichella. Completing the top 10 is Alexander Wurz. Both the Benettons in the top 10. And Mika Häkkinen just about 3 miles, perhaps 3.5 miles away from his first victory of 2000. Look at the Finnish flags flying there. There's a very big contingent of Finns here. They follow their man with enormous enthusiasm, and they're going to get their reward here in Spain, because in just a minute and a half or so's time, the man you are looking at, Mika Häkkinen, is going to be coming into the finish to score his 50th career Grand Prix win, to give him 10 World Championship points, to add to the 12 that he already has. Now, Michael Schumacher should finish this race on 36 points. Mika Häkkinen will finish on 22 points. The gap will have been dramatically reduced between the 2 of them. The World Championship is a long, long way from being finished, and we're on the last lap.
Must be lovely for Häkkinen to see that board. P1, L1, position 1, of course. 1 lap to go, 17.3 seconds ahead of David Coulthard. Barrichello a further 14.5 seconds down the road. So it's quite a spread out now for the podium players, but I think they'll all be pretty satisfied with their afternoon, given where they were coming from.
Indeed, and especially Mika, the quiet, unflappable, pragmatic Mika Häkkinen, 17 seconds ahead of David Coulthard. Their lap times have come down considerably, indicating the fact that they are pacing themselves home, and there's a very, very short distance now between Mika Häkkinen and that wonderful sight for a racing driver, the checkered flag, which means not only that you have finished the race, but that you have, in his case, won it. The Spanish Grand Prix. Out of the right-hander comes Mika Häkkinen. You can see the crowd moving in the background, the Finnish flags waving there. Into and out of the last corner now comes Mika Häkkinen, crossing the line, and it is victory for Häkkinen, McLaren and Mercedes in Spain. And the mass of blue and white flags, it's a very happy, a very relieved Mika Häkkinen. David Coulthard, I'm just looking to see whether, yes, David Coulthard goes through in second position. There he is. So, for the second race in succession, the McLaren team have scored 16 World Championship points in the Constructors' contest as Rubens Barrichello finishes in third position. Now, is it going to be Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW in fourth place in just a few seconds' time? Yes, over the line he goes. And Heinz Harald Frentzen is 35 seconds down the line. Only 6 people will have completed the full race distance.
Great day for McLaren. Many people here expected the Ferrari to have the edge and possibly even scamper off into the distance today. But it didn't happen, and it tightens the championship up very nicely for us, the fans. And certainly any ideas that this would all be over by July or August this year with a whitewash by Michael Schumacher is firmly out of the window now. I think, Murray, we're in for quite a tight championship yet again.
Indeed we are. And you saw an overjoyed Mario Ilian there, who'd had engine problems in the Australian and Brazilian Grand Prix to put right. Ferrari won those 2 races very convincingly. But now, in the Drivers' Championship, Mika Häkkinen is up into second place ahead of David Coulthard and 14 points behind Michael Schumacher, and 2 points ahead of David Coulthard. Rubens Barrichello, who started this race equal 4th in the championship, is now just 1 point in 4th place ahead of Ralf Schumacher, and Fisichella well down in 6th position. Now McLaren are only 7 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. The World Championship of 2000, which at one time looked as though it was going to be a Michael Schumacher and Ferrari benefit, is proving, thanks to a couple of brilliant races from McLaren and Mercedes, to be quite the opposite.
I'd love to be in the room when the 2 Schumacher brothers get together. They do tend to get together just after the race and going and have a drink at a certain place in the paddock. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation, because if Michael didn't intend to wrestle his brother out like that, and I think he probably did, then he certainly made a bad error and cost his brother a place. So they're going to have an interesting conversation one way or the other.
Thumbs up from Mika Häkkinen all the way around the track. He's obviously absolutely overjoyed inside the cockpit there, and with every good reason. Touring home, the flags flying. Well, I said before that sometimes the Spanish Grand Prix, and particularly last year, has been processional, anything but this year. That was the Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello situation was certainly one of the most exciting passing manoeuvres I have seen for a very, very long time. Here's Rubens getting out of the cockpit, and confirmation about the Constructors' Championship, with Ferrari just being 7 points ahead of McLaren Mercedes, and Williams BMW holding their 3rd position ahead of Jordan.
But Coulthard struggling to get out. The last time I saw him before the race, he had a frozen bag on his ribs and was laying down, and he looked like he could barely walk out of the motorhome, let alone get in a Formula 1 car.
He looked a bit tense and stiff there, Martin, as he eased himself out of the cockpit. In comes Mika. Now, when he gets up onto that podium, are we going to see him replicate the Michael Schumacher jump? I don't think so. Both David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen are pretty conservative chaps on the podium, and they're both up there again for the second race in succession. Only one Ferrari driver. But once again, Williams, BMW have got one of their cars. It looked as though it was going to be both of them in the points.
So the pole sitter has still yet to win a race since the last Hungarian Grand Prix in August of 1999.
Absolutely so. Congratulations to myself. I'm delighted, says Mika Häkkinen, as Ron Dennis and Jürgen Hubbard from Mercedes-Benz congratulate him. I don't know what Ron's saying to him.
Ron will be filling Mika in on certain events that Mika may not be aware of earlier on in the race, and Ron likes to keep the corporate stuff under control, and I think that's the right thing to do. Mika's going to go up onto the podium. The next thing is he's in the press conference and then the unilateral TV, so any little bit of information he can gather between getting out of his crash helmet and facing the world press is very, very useful.
That's Norbert Haug, who is the Mercedes-Benz competition boss, who is quite rightly congratulating him. Now they go into the scrutineering area to be weighed, something that we've seen many times in the past. It is a formality. There won't be any problem with Mika Häkkinen's weight, and there won't be any problem about his combined weight with the car being under the permitted lowest level.
There's always so many Finnish flags in the crowd. I don't know whether anybody lives in Finland anymore. They seem to be scattered around all the places we go to for Grand Prix.
I think a lot of the fans actually buy flags irrespective of their nationality, of the nationality of their hero. I remember at Imola, I went up to 3 Union Jack wrapped chaps after Nigel Mansell had won a race and said, that wasn't bad, was it? And they said, okay, they were all Italians.
Very good. Barrichello you saw making his way in. That's his second podium for Ferrari in 5 races, so not too bad a start from him. But as we said earlier in the race, you've really got to wonder where Rubens' ultimate pace is going to come from. He's not going to match Michael Schumacher. He's got to step up a gear somehow.
Yeah, there were a lot of people. I mean, he was making a lot, understandably, out of the fact that there weren't any orders written into his contract, as there were with Eddie Irvine last year, and that if he could get ahead and stay ahead of Michael Schumacher, he would be allowed to. Well, that really hasn't applied this year. Now, here we are. It's podium time.
Eddie Irvine did his fastest lap of the race as he went over the start-finish line to complete the race, which always upsets the bosses because they think you weren't trying hard enough earlier on. So it's very unusual to see that. We've got a green sector up here on our computers showing us that Irvine, who was down in 11th place, Herbert in 13th place, Button out of the race, of course, with the engine problem, but Eddie Irvine doing his best lap right at the end.
So while we wait for them to come onto the podium, and I'll interrupt myself when they do, victory for Häkkinen, 2nd Coulthard, 3rd Barrichello, 4th Ralf Schumacher, 5th Michael Schumacher, 6th Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 7th Mika Salo, 8th Ricardo Zonta, 9th Fisichella, 10th Wurz, 11th Eddie Irvine, 12th Trulli, 13th Herbert, 14th Genet, 15th Mazzacane, 16th Heidfeld. That's Adrian Newey in the cap, the man who designed the victorious McLaren Mercedes. And obviously very happy indeed with Didier Cotton in the background, who is Mika Häkkinen's manager. On to the podium, Rubens Barrichello. Top step, Mika Häkkinen. 2nd step, David Coulthard. 3rd step, Rubens Barrichello. The winning trio in Spain. The Finnish national anthem. David. Well done, Mika. Well done, Rubens. And there is Heidi, who is David Spill's very happy woman. special mention for the courage of David Coulthard. He drove a magnificent race to finish second to his teammate Mika Häkkinen, who now receives the winner's trophy. It's the President of Catalonia, in which of course Barcelona is situated, and this excellent circuit where they do so much testing. A replica of a modern Formula One steering wheel. And David Coulthard gets a similar one soon, but the boss of the Olympics, Juan Samaranch, gives the Constructors' Trophy to Jürgen Huppert of Mercedes-Benz, as David receives his trophy, and then Rubens Barrichello. So, a convincing and magnificent win for McLaren and Mercedes-Benz, who have defeated the might of Ferrari here in Spain fairly and squarely. Michael Schumacher retains the lead in the World Championship, but by a dramatically reduced margin as the champagne flows between Mika Häkkinen and Rubens Barrichello. Congratulations all round from Mika. David quietly steps away and keeps out of it, and you can understand why. So, there you go. It's great in Spain. McLaren, who've never been away, are right knocking on the door of Ferrari.
Flying high at the Catalonia circuit outside Barcelona are the McLaren team, who have bounced right back here. Mika Häkkinen, the world champion, with his first victory of 2000, followed home by David Coulthard. What a really brave drive by the Silverstone winner. Rubens Barrichello, third for Ferrari. Here we go with the press conference then.
Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello. Mika, many congratulations. This is your third victory in a row here. You must feel very pleased.
Yes. I don't know how I could explain it, how pleased I am. I'm just over the moon, or how you say it.
You seemed quicker than Michael throughout the race. Were you just waiting for the pit stops?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And moving on to David, well done, Mika.
Oh, that's it. You don't ask anything else.
I'll come back to you in a moment. David, you seem to be, you're proving an expert at overtaking Michael Schumacher. Did you have any indication at the time that he was in trouble?
Well, clearly, how quickly I caught him, I knew that that wasn't his normal pace. So I knew he had a problem. And it was just a question of trying to use momentum as you catch him to get by, because even if someone's running 2 seconds a lap slower, it can still be quite difficult to overtake. And it was quite close on his the first manoeuvre he made, pulling to the right. I was very surprised at how late he made the decision, and we came very close to touching. And then the second attempt, and I obviously went for the outside and felt confident I could outbrake him. So despite me having made a mistake in the first pit stop, which is why I dropped behind Ralph and Rubens, the guys did a good job to call me in a little bit earlier to get me track position after the stop.
In view of the events of the past week, has it been a good thing for you to get into a race car and just get down to business? I understand you have a cracked rib.
Absolutely. Get in the car, drive, do my job, and you know, this is the best thing that could happen for the team and myself to come away from here with maximum points.
Well done, David. Moving on to Mika, Rubens. Rubens, you benefited from Michael and Ralph scrapping. Do you feel that you owe this podium to Michael?
Well, in a way, yes. I must admit that you know, the race wasn't really good up to that point, because you know, you run behind people, and even if they are 2 seconds slower, you just there's no way to overtake. So basically, I had my race was that. You know, I was looking forward when I'm on the pit overtook David, and I was looking for that again with Ralph, but as far as I'm concerned, I think the team had a problem with Nigel, and who was putting the fuel in, and then my pit stop was quite slow. So then I lose for both, and you know, my only chance was when I saw we were approaching Michael, and I was lucky to drive by both.
Michael ran over Nigel Stepney in his first stop. Do you know how Nigel is?
Well, as they just told me that he has a problem with his leg, but I hope it's not too bad.
Thank you, Rubens. Back to Mika. You're now 14 points behind Michael in the World Championship. As we go to the Nürburgring, do you consider the World Championships to still be wide open?
Before I answer that question, I want to say one thing. I would say I think the boys did a fantastic job today. You know, for the pit stop what we did today, it was just amazing. I mean, like you saw when we were coming together with the Michael to the pit stop, and they just did a brilliant job. You know, changed the tires just like they should, and they did fabulous way. I'm just very pleased, and I want to just say thank you for them. Great teamwork. And answer your question, it's a long way to go until the end of the season, and anything can happen. Today was a good example. I'm looking forward to next Grand Prix and next test. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm happy. You know, we have learned a lot this Grand Prix this weekend, a lot about this car, and I believe we can make it much quicker in the rest of the season.
Well, that victory really meaning a lot to the world champion there. Martin Brundle has joined myself and Tony up in the studio. I mean, he's not the most loquacious at the best of times, is he? But he was really struggling to get the words out there at the start. Was that exhaustion or what?
I think Mika struggles a bit in the English language, which is understandable. But our
Finnish isn't too bright, I have to say.
Exactly. But he's not a particularly vociferous person, but it was unusual for him to say, hang on a minute, before I answer that, I want to come back in and say something else. So it's not, I've never heard Mika do that before. There was some points he wanted to, some buttons he wanted to hit in that little press conference, and thank his team, because they did do a good job.
Now, David Coulthard, I mean, he was hurting physically. Goodness knows what was going in there mentally before the race, but physically this was a very, very tough afternoon for him, and he came through it really well.
He did. I think he made the mistake in the pit stop. Obviously, we spotted he had a slow stop, but we didn't see why exactly. David obviously was slow away or didn't hook first gear up or something. I noticed his pit lane limiter came on very late, so maybe he'd switched it off by mistake or something like that. But the team got him track position ahead of Barrichello and Ralph, and it just gave him a second win. You could see that, and he was homing in on Michael, which was slightly injured Prix at the time. We now think it's because of the slow puncture, although they're saying it's low pressure rather than punctured, which is interesting in itself. We need Inspector Clouseau around there, I think, to work that one out. But I think that his adrenaline would have pumped him up again. It's amazing what you can do with a bit of adrenaline, but when you pass the line and it all starts fading away, then the pain comes in.
And you get tired. Tony, let's have a look at the start here. I mean, for a long time, this race looked as though it was all going to go according to plan, and we're in for a repeat of last year's bore.
Yeah, but just look at the way Michael Schumacher moved right across there for protection, and then Ralf Schumacher, the star of the start and one of the stars of the race, they're moving right inside, and we're going to see more of the brotherly love or not a little bit later on, but incredibly aggressive start from Ralf, absolutely superb, and the power of the BMW. Of course, at this stage we're seeing Ralf with the BMW ahead of the Mercedes as well for the first time, which must have been dramatic. Button making a great move as well, because he got up to 9th place. Amazingly clean start, because you got this super long straight where they can really gun it all the way down there to the Elf Bend and into the S's. But look at them forcing out onto the line, and there is Ralf flying past. He's gone past Barrichello, he's gone past David Coulthard as well, and back he has a go. And this was the frightening bit. Could this have been 97 all over again at the Nürburgring when he took his brother out, when Michael was on his championship charge? That blunted his charge at the time.
Sure. Before we look at that the pit stop, the Michael Schumacher pit stop, I mean, you have been in charge of those pit crews, and you know exactly the adrenaline that flies around down there building up to a pit stop.
Yeah, but it's worse now, because the races are won and lost in the pits. You know, the Grand Prix may as well happen in the pit lane, and these guys are now now seriously training. We had a feature before the start of the race with Bernie Shrewsbury and this Human Performance Centre. Guys have really got to get fit, and that's why Stepney's had to get fit. And, you know, this is a real problem, and Martin identified. You look at the Lollipop Man, look, now the hose isn't off, but he lifts up and then tries to put it back down, and poor Nigel Stepney, who's a great mate of mine, I work with him at Lotus Benetton, all sorts of places. Ironically, there he is. He's the Englishman that's knocked that crew into shape. He's the guy been responsible for all their training. And it's one of his own men that lets him down, the Lollipop Man down there. Now, I can't quite see whether the rear wheel goes over his head. It just looks like it knocks his kneecap, which of course is even worse for him as well. It could be ligaments or something like that. There he is, poor Nigel.
But as soon as that lollipop goes up, as a driver, you've got to go. You're gone, aren't you?
It's a hair trigger, and you depend totally on that man. You can't. There's so much action going on around the car, and the car's such a stiff thing that, you know, as the wheel guns are on each tyre and the refueling on and off, the car's moving anyway, so you can't identify which movement is which. So you depend totally on that man. You can't see anything in your mirrors. It's filled up with your mechanics' overalls working on your car. I had exactly the same thing happen to me in a sports car race once.
Really?
It's the reflex action. They went to pull the refuel off and it didn't come off first time. The Lollipop Man's hair trigger reflex is up, and we all know about Schumacher's reflexes. I can now see why Michael didn't hesitate, because actually it brushed the Nigel Stepney to one side. It didn't run over him as such. The Lollipop Man panicked, of course, and just about slapped him on top of the head.
Okay, well, we can actually hear from Nigel Stepney. We saw him being carried away there, and well, obviously smiling, recovering, and talking to Louise Goodman.
Nigel, how are you feeling?
Better now than before.
Is there any damage?
It's just stretched a ligament or broken a ligament. It's just swollen a little bit.
It must have been a very, very nasty moment, frightening moment.
Well, I think what I remember of it, yeah.
And your thoughts for the man who's had to take over from you?
Well, very many.
Were you watching whilst you're in the medical centre?
Yeah, I saw what happened.
Well, we're glad you're all right anyway, Nigel.
Thank you.
It's great to see Nigel Stepney smiling there. We will see, of course, what happened when he wasn't around when you rejoin us. We also have the result of our competition, and we will be talking to Michael Schumacher. See you shortly. You're back with us in Barcelona. Let's take a look at this absolutely crucial second stop then for Michael Schumacher. Nigel Stepney carried out of the pits, and Andrea Vicari, the guy given the responsibility. Tony, you first.
Well, we're not sure what the problem was, whether the flap didn't open or whatever. We're getting some information from James that maybe was the case, but whatever it was, they couldn't get that hose on properly. And both of them had come in at the same time, so it was the battle of the pit lane, the battle of the Grand Prix. And over 10 seconds we found out that Michael Schumacher lost in there. The trouble is, mechanical or otherwise, Ferrari will be panned in Italy for that. The crew will be panned for it. And as Nigel Stepney says, what happens in the village of Maranello after the race, he said, if we've done badly, none of us go out, because you get in such trouble in the village. If you do well, you go out, everyone buys you drinks. You know when they only had 3 wheels on the wagon last year?
Correct.
They put a wheel in the middle of the town square and said, we found the wheel for you.
They would like to put somebody in the stocks as well, and Senor Vicari might be the fella, but perhaps he's got a good case on his own behalf.
Somebody's telling a few fibs here. The flap was clearly up when we just saw that replay, which is the first time I've seen the replay. The flap was up as he came in. But, you know, the man's thrust in to refuel Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Well, he's leading a Grand Prix, leading the World Championship. He had one shot at getting a very heavy refueling rig on square, and we should all go and try it sometime. I'd like to give. I have tried it once.
Perhaps we'll do that next time round.
It is not easy.
Yeah. Now then, Michael Schumacher again. He was having a bit of a problem with one of his tyres, but David Coulthard, I mean, he wasn't to know that, but he was really swarming all over him, and he finally got his man, Martin.
Yes, David's just got this thing in his mind that he can overtake Michael Schumacher whenever he needs to, and he won't let go. And this is the first one that David said, I'm a bit surprised how late he decided to move over. To be honest, I think Michael was completely fair there in what he did. Michael wrestling the Ferrari. And what's now clear is he had a low left rear tyre pressure, which was giving Coulthard a run on him at a crucial point onto that pit straight. And Michael then knew with the poor handling car, if he tried to dive up the inside, he would simply have run straight into the McLaren, and he had to yield, and David was very positive. David said something interesting. He said, I caught him quickly and I wanted to pounce straight away. There we see it again. David then on the correct part of the racetrack, so he knows he can turn in, he knows exactly how much grip he's going to have, and there'll be a satisfied grin on his face behind that.
That's 2 races running. He's done that to a Ferrari. Is he a more confident type of guy these days?
He seems to be, doesn't he? He's prepared to have a go. And what's frustrating for me is seeing all of those people when they're following another Formula 1 car, and you think, well, have a go, for goodness sake, have a go, give Murray something to talk about, you know, and they seem to be just holding station, and then they get ahead and they just disappear into the distance.
Yeah, this is the place, of course, where you're not supposed to overtake, isn't it? So he's laid that one, hasn't he? What about these old Schumachers up here then? I mean, the brotherly love bit went out of the window, but a tough choice. I mean, you either look after your brother or you look after your team.
Yeah, but you see, Michael Schumacher, again, he's been panned in the Italian press and in the UK press for going soft on his brother after the British Grand Prix and not having a go at him when he went inside him at Bridge. Now, this was not only tactical, but he got involved on the outside, almost his left front there on the side pod of his brother Ralf Schumacher. No love lost whatsoever, and Barrichello diving through and taking the 3rd place. But Ralf is extremely, look at this here, sliding away all over the place. Just sensational stuff between the 2 brothers. But the fact is that Michael does look out for his younger brother, and he does tend to give a little bit away. He's looked after him all his life. He says he always gets his own way, and here he's almost getting his own way then again. But Rubens Barrichello earns the place from this particular. Look at that.
Martin, you're smiling looking at all that. I get the impression you'd have loved to have been among that little lot.
I would have loved to have been in there, to be honest, but that is the soap opera part of Formula 1 that just makes me smile. I really did enjoy all of that, and Michael's, I hope he did it on purpose, to be honest, because it was a very skillful piece of driving to move other people's Formula 1 cars around whilst controlling your own and allowing your teammate to take position.
Give us an insight into that chat you were speculating about between the 2 brothers that's going on now then.
I don't know, I mean, they're both quite strong-minded people. I don't know what mum and dad say sitting on the settee at home, sort of, you know, I don't know which side they'll take on it, whether they'll take Big Brother's side or what, but it's a simple fact. Ferrari pay Michael Schumacher tens of millions, or have him paid by various sponsors, tens of millions of dollars to drive their car and drive for their team. And I think there's a big thing today, and it shows the Stepney thing and the pit stop thing. You know, a racing driver, a Grand Prix driver, can't always win Grand Prix by himself. You need all of the team players around you.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Let's hear what Michael Schumacher himself has got to say about it all. Here he is then in conversation with James Allen.
Michael, great news obviously is that Nigel's okay, but a terrible day for you really. You must be quite upset.
No, upset is the wrong word, but a little bit disappointed.
It was what's the problem exactly in the middle of the race? I heard that you had some problem with one of the tyres, is that right?
I had a puncture. Yeah.
You seem fairly philosophical about it.
How you mean philosophical?
Well, you've lost points today, but it's.
I mean, that was expected. One day it would come for us, would come to us, and today it was the day, unfortunately. But still 2 points and long season to go.
Still a couple of points for him. Jenson Button looked as though he might score here again, but the BMW went right at the end.
Yeah, it did, and I mean, BMW still have some problems, especially with the oil, and they have to change the oil quite regularly in the engines, but there's no question about the power of them, despite that they're heavy, despite that the cars were quite difficult earlier on in the season to drive. But we mustn't forget also he was criticised to a degree by Sir Frank Williams about his focus on the British Grand Prix because of the hype all around him. And as Martin alluded to in his commentary, there's been a lot of press speculation about all sorts of things. Him moving to Monte Carlo, and he doesn't care about UK and Union Jacks and things all going on. Put that all behind him, and he was heading for a championship point.
As I think you mentioned in your commentary, 1 or 2 of the tabloids have been giving the young Jenson a bit of a slapping over the last couple of days. And has he got to get used to it, or what's the form there from now on in, do you think?
It's a free-for-all out there, isn't it, really? I mean, we're busy as racing drivers trying to race each other on the track, and the newspapers are busy trying to get the next headline, and they seem to have no bounds as to where they will go to do that, to sell. And even the the motor racing specialist press are becoming almost tabloid in the way they go about it. I mean,
lots of people watch it. It's big business, Martin. I can tell you that.
That's fair enough. I mean, it's fair game, and you have to watch out for it. They've got a job to do. We've got a job to do, but it sort of creates a bit of a war in the end.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Let's just remind you how things look now. Then in the drivers' championship, he's still well clear, isn't he? Schumacher 14 points, but the McLaren's catching up. David Coulthard back in third. Then Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella. OK, now the result of our competition. Thanks very much, by the way. Scores of you entered. It's a great prize, a magnificent sporting doubleheader in a fortnight's time. First, the winner goes to the FA Cup final, Chelsea against Aston Villa. And then next day, you're whisked to the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Johnny Herbert had that emotional win for Stewart there last time round. Second prize assigned Mika Hakkinen helmet and the gloves he wore in his drive at Silverstone. And third prize, the corks that David Coulthard popped to the British Grand Prix, and a magnum of champagne as well. Remember, the question we asked you was pretty simple. Bridge Corner is a feature at Silverstone, but which English football club plays at the bridge? Is it A, Northampton, B, Chelsea, or C, the Villa? Chelsea, the answer, of course, and our big winner is Helen Dixon from Banbury in Oxfordshire. Graham Will gets the Hakkinen helmet and gloves, and the champagne and the corks go to Paul McGee from Blackhall Colliery. Well done to you all, and thanks for your entries. Highlights are coming up later tonight, 11:30. More comment, reaction and analysis in that programme. Repeated as always on ITV2, 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Thank you. What happens has happened. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to learn from it for the future. Thank you.
I need to ask him another question. Can I ask you one more thing? Nigel, can I ask you, talk us through it as it happened from your point of view?
I remember going on no problem. The refueling had finished, and I was coming off. And as I came off, just to disconnect, the car started to go, and that's all I remember.
You're the chief mechanic. Tell us who's responsible for letting the car go.
We have another very good guy who controls the car. It's just one of those things. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's right. Whilst it's all been happening in the pit lane, Jack has gone out of the race. Jack, what was the problem?
I don't know. The throttle stopped working, and right away the car caught fire at the same time. So maybe a hydraulic leak. I don't know.
Thanks. Prince Harold, you got a point at the end of the day.
Yes, I'm very happy with 1 point today. That was at least something we could bring home today. So
I think the way your weekend's gone, you were actually very lucky to get that point, were you?
of course, yes, but we were also unlucky that we lost some points with the gearbox, and we gave the other points to the other people.
This is true. Not a good weekend for Jordan all round, though. Improvements in the next race, do you think?
Well, certainly we have done. The good news is that the gearbox is all right, and we can finish the races. And Barcelona has been always a track where Jordan has struggled here, so I think we have one of the best results for Jordan here in Barcelona. But I think from here on we can steadily build up the car again.
Endlich ein Punkt.
Eddie, not a brilliant day for Jaguar. The word lacklustre comes to mind.
I wouldn't say that. You know, we've got our problems. You know, we can qualify well, we can run quick when we're not stuck up people's or stuck behind slower cars, but we get stuck behind slower cars because we can't start. So we just got to work on that, and we are working on it. And but you know, everything's in progress. It's, you know, you don't switch the lights on just because you painted green. So we just got to keep working away and get more. We need to get a little bit more methodical, that's for sure, and get everything a little bit tighter. But we've so many different problems in so many different areas that it's difficult to develop the car in a logical way, because you know when we're testing things, something else goes wrong, so it confuses the answers. So we just got to tidy the whole thing up, and there's nothing other than work that's going to cure it. You know, there's no magical cure. We just got to keep plugging away and look at it logically.
Was it the start that cost you today? Was it the clutch again?
Well, it's another one of the just atrocious starts. I've only made one this year, and that was really lucky in Brazil because I nearly stalled it. Normally I either nearly stall or I light the rear wheels up. There's no medium, so today again it was just lit the rear tyres up and sat there going nowhere. But
you, not the car?
Well, I never had this problem for 3 years, so we got to work on it. There's ways to make better starts. We haven't got them ways yet, and you know there's things happening that we're not quite sure what's happening, and we just got to work on them. And there's no magic.
Jensen, that was a bit cruel, wasn't it? So near and yet so far.
Yeah, well, I don't want to finish all of them, do I? I'll have too many points.
You should try it. It's quite fun, actually.
No, well, it happens, doesn't it? I still enjoyed the race, probably more than any race this year, actually. But starting 10th, which would have been 11th yesterday, was good, and also I had a good start, which I was happy with. Could have been better, but I was a bit cautious. And being in 6th position, I was very, very happy with leapfrogging the Jordans on the second stint. So just looking forward to the next one.
Some good tactical calls from the team.
Yeah, the team did a good job with myself and Ralph, and I think I'm getting better in the pit stops now. At Silverstone I wasn't too good, but it's getting better, and I'm sure it will for the next race.
Practice makes perfect. We're going to see you on the podium soon.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? But we'll see.
Well done today.
Thank you.
You said you enjoyed it more than any other, any particular reason?
Keith, wake up, Keith.
I missed it! Oh no!
Ron, a very dramatic day and a dramatic victory for McLaren.
Indeed. It's a great victory. I think both drivers did a fantastic job, but I'm particularly pleased with the team and the strategy and the way we varied it and the outcome. It was a satisfying day for us.
It was a very bold move on your part, obviously, to bring Mika's stop at the same time as Michael's second stop, because you knew you were going to put so much pressure on poor old Andrea Vaccari, the stand-in fuel man, and it worked, didn't it?
Really, we were optimistic that we could get in and out faster than Michael, because we're taking a bit more fuel, and we knew the stop was going to be shorter anyway. I don't think their fumble caused it. I think we were going to have them anyway, but I would say that, wouldn't I?
Murray said McLaren, who were never far away, are now right back in it again, and I guess that's pretty true, isn't it?
Well, as I've said over the last few weeks, you know, the way to eat an elephant is one mouthful at a time, and that's the way we had to take the points gap. We're still not there, but it's another step in the right direction, and I'm sure everybody in Woking feels delighted with the result.
Great day, well done, Ron. Well, Ross, I guess you didn't pack your rabbit's foot this morning, because just about everything that could have gone wrong for you did go wrong today.
It wasn't our best race, it's true. Nigel got run over in the first round of stops. Luckily he's okay, but we had to use our reserve refueler, who struggled on Michael's last stop, and then we picked up a puncture. We didn't know what the problem was, so we persevered for a while, and then we could see it went down far enough for us to understand what was happening. We came and put another set of tyres on.
How did Michael take all of this? What's he been like on the radio throughout the race?
Pretty philosophical. I mean, he was obviously very concerned in the middle when he was going too slowly. So, but he's picked up some points today, so could have been worse.
How costly is it, Ross?
Well, we were fighting for the lead, and I think if everything had gone smoother, we could have won the race, but it just didn't go for us today. So, and to be competitive here, if you look at previous years, is very encouraging.
Michael, great news obviously is that Nigel's okay, but a terrible day for you really. You must be quite upset.
No, upset is the wrong word, but a little bit disappointed.
It was what's the problem exactly in the middle of the race? I heard that you had some problem with one of the tyres, is that right?
I had a puncture.
You always seem fairly philosophical about it.
How do you mean philosophical?
Well, you've lost points today, but it's
I mean, that was expected. One day it would come for us, would come to us, and today it was the day, unfortunately. But still 2 points and a long season to go.
Jonna, this is always described as a very physical track. Why is that? Why should it be worse than anywhere else?
First of all, because it's hot, but then even because track is very quick. I mean, there are very high-speed corners, especially in the last sector, and so this is very physical even for the neck.
It's traditionally not a very good track for Jordan. Is that because of those high-speed corners?
Well, it's a very aerodynamic track, and you need a compromise between aerodynamic and engine and mechanical side of the car. But it seems that Jordan has never worked very, very well. But we are not even far away from the pole.
Well, I hope you're proven wrong today.
Yeah, I will. I hope so.
Patrick, well, you got one car home in the points, but on the whole, I think a day of disappointment for the team.
Well, one can look at it in two ways, but of Ralph's thinking that he might have been able to hold on to a slightly higher place, but and obviously disappointing for Jensen. But for this stage of the year, with a new engine, to finish fairly closely up behind the third car, Ferrari. To finish behind two McLaren Mercedes and one Ferrari is not really too bad, but obviously we want to do better in the future.
Ralph is actually spitting blood about that move his brother pulled on him. I know you've just been talking to him. What did he say to you?
Well, I can't really say too much about it, but he'll probably have a quiet chat with Michael about it. I don't think he'll make a public display of his views, but it's something he'll probably sort out in a chat with Michael, I would think.
I take that to mean he's not best pleased.
You can draw your own conclusions, Louise. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I'll start. You ready, Keith? David, did they not tell you you're not supposed to be able to overtake in Formula One?
Well, you can't make me laugh because it hurts. Yeah, no, but the Ralph one, obviously he was coming out of the pit, so it wasn't really a proper manoeuvre, but thankfully I'll take it anyway. And with Michael, he had a problem. So again, it was difficult, but it doesn't count as being in a proper racing situation. But nonetheless, you know, once again I overtake, so hopefully again that will take away this you know, sort of bullshit of me being too nice. You know, if I was too nice, I'd be after you and wouldn't want to overtake.
You look like you're in a lot of pain.
I'm just in a bit of discomfort from my side, so just some muscle damage, that's all.
A satisfactory end to what's been a very difficult weekend for you?
Yeah, under the circumstances, I think second place, 6 points, and you know, more importantly for the team to get 16 points, I think is a good result, good weekend, and just want to put this one behind us now and get some rest, and then look towards Nürburgring.
You look towards Nürburgring, physically, that should be an easy track to drive on.
Yeah, no, I don't think I had any problems physically here, other than some bruising. I don't think you know, my physical condition, I've worked on it hard, so I felt well prepared despite what happened in the week. So I've got no concerns at all for the remaining races.
Brazil is Brazil.
Start could be a bit better.
Yeah, unfortunately, I chose the clutch that I had on Friday, which I was quite happy, and it didn't behave the way I wanted, and I almost bogged down on the start, so it was a pity because I could have lost more places. This week we're going to have a lot of tests, so I need to practice a little bit more because I had a fantastic one in Silverstone, and we need to check why we could be so unpredictable on the start. We are on the safe side, and 60% or 70% of the time we have good starts, but you know, I had a bad one today.
Michael and Ralph, good view.
Well, I had a fantastic view, you know, and what can I say? I mean, when you see someone like Michael that was having a problem, if it was myself, I would not risk it. I would try in a safe place because I know somebody is coming behind me with a car that's probably faster than mine. But Ralph tried everything he could at the first time he caught Michael, and then both were running alongside each other, and I saw my chance, and I drive on the inside, and I was lucky. I mean, it looked like it was a team effort, you know, like Michael doing something for myself, but you could ask him. I don't think it was the case.
Have you had a chance to speak to Michael since the race?
No, I saw him at the end of the race, but obviously he was quite disappointed, so I didn't say much. You know, I feel like I had a better car than third position today. I feel like, but I never run by myself. I choose a good setup, but I was stuck behind people. Basically, I had the 10 laps at the end to go, but then the pace was gone already. I couldn't achieve more than third, so I just slowed down a bit.
Ralph certainly believes that his brother blocked him to let you pass. What was your view on it?
There was no chance he could have blocked me there, because I think it was Ralph's mistake to try in a place that he wasn't there. I mean, for sure he was running alongside, but if it was me, I would wait for another chance just to view, because if you cannot get overtake, you stay there and try another chance. He tried everything into that corner, and then he lost, and I was there so close, and I got the best out of it.
But do you think Michael helped you out there?
In a way, eventually he did, but he wasn't told for, and I don't think he wanted to. He didn't make it. He tried to avoid Ralph overtaking on the outside, so both run wide, and I had the perfect momentum. I saw his rev limiter, because he was so close to him that I could actually see his steering wheel. But it was a good chance, and I had to drive. I mean, on these days with the cars like we have, it's so difficult to overtake. So it was my chance, and it was the only chance I had in the race, and I feel good. I wanted to do it, and I did.
You know, it's a 10th time.
Shaved today.
I haven't shaved today. I'm sorry.
What happened?
I was late this morning.
Late last night or late this morning?
Both. Nick,
All right.
you know, it's the 10th time in a row.
Don't show this to your girlfriend.
I won't. It's the 10th time in a row.
Does she know?
The Grand Prix hasn't been won from pole
Start again. What was it?
You know, it's the 10th time in a row that the Grand Prix hasn't been won from pole position. You know that?
No, I understood it. It has been a very strange situation, you know, in terms of not being a pole position and winning Grand Prix. But if you look start of this year, you know, I was in pole position most of the races, and I didn't win the race most of the time because I didn't finish the Grand Prix. But whatever, yeah, you're right.
Now you must be very relieved building this success, because the title is not far away. Not as far as earlier in the season people thought maybe.
Title?
It's a long way. You're not that far behind.
It's a long way to go. It's a long season. It's a very long season, very tough season. Anything can happen, like we saw last year. And we just have to stay calm and work maximum and learn all the time, and work constructively and to fix our problems. We still have a lot of things what we need to understand. What we don't, well, we do understand most of them, but we just have to push to get ourselves to be 100%. We are not yet.
I'll shave next for you.
Thanks.
That's your first time. Mika, that's your first time up on the top step over the podium for about 7 months. Was there a sense of relief being back up there?
Yes, definitely. I'm really happy about it.
I haven't shaved either.
It's that you learned, Mika.
I wonder. I don't know how to think about that.
It seems like you
It's not that bad at all.
Used to 14 points. Häkkinen has overtaken Coulthard. Barrichello still fourth. Ralf Schumacher actually dropping a place. And Fisichella becalmed on 8. In the constructors, McLaren within 7 points now of the reigning champions. Williams adding 3 points to stay a clear third. Frenson's point for Jordan is their return from Barcelona. We're going to have to change our minds about this place. We say great place to visit, always a dull race. Not this year, though.
Oh, this circuit has shattered its reputation for dull races, hasn't it? It really turned around. I think the first 10, 15 minutes thinking, oh no, it's the procession of last year. It wasn't. It was an absolute thriller, dictated not just by brave overtaking manoeuvres, but also action in the pits.
Schumacher said he expected to win here today, and after the start it looked as though everything was going according to plan for him.
You know, he's been oozing confidence, and of course he's been upsetting all his rivals because they think perhaps he is overconfident, but here he makes a manoeuvre to protect the position because of fast-starting Mika Häkkinen. But the man of the match, the star of the show, was Ralf Schumacher, just barreling down the inside. You saw him then just tucking in behind his brother. It was really nearly like 97 all over again when he took his brother out at the beginning of the European race in 97 at Nürburgring. Button making a great start there, sliding his way through and getting through to ninth place. There goes Ralf. Look at him going past Rubens Barrichello, and he jumps David Coulthard. But now he's honing in on his brother in the Ferrari. Look, going right down that white line on the inside, seeing if he can have a go on the inside there, and not quite touching his brother. So dramatic start.
Not for the first time, we have to say. It all went wrong for Ferrari and Michael Schumacher in his pit stops.
Yeah, well, he seemed, you know, we weren't sure if he was coming in a little bit late, and he was a little bit agitated. Now, we've got to watch the lollipop man here controlling the front. Nigel Stepney's on the big fuel hose, and Nigel Stepney gets a whack by the right rear there as he's going away, and it was the fault of the man controlling. There's Nigel Stepney being carried away, the English chief mechanic of Ferrari. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, he stayed ahead of Häkkinen, but later on, Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher coming in together. This is the battle of the race, the battle of the pit stops, the battle of the two crews. They've got a substitute fuel filler on there now, Andrea Vicari, and can't get that hose on. It has to sit squarely on. Schumacher has to wait for over 10 seconds while they refill. Häkkinen's in, out, gone, into the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix, probably smiling under his face mask there, and poor Schumacher sitting there.
You can tell by his demeanour after the race that Michael Schumacher was absolutely livid about that. He had a bit of tyre degradation as well at this track that's so tough on tyres, and David Coulthard took maximum advantage, didn't he?
Yeah, and we're not quite sure exactly what it is, whether the tyres was turning on the rim as they did in Australia, but this was almost like looking at 91, and Mansell against Senna coming down that long straight at Barcelona. And this was David Coulthard trying to get past. Now, the next lap, he has to go round the outside, lap 46, and he gets that place and gets up into third. And that was after David Coulthard had bodged his pit stop earlier on. McLaren very cleverly had brought him in a little bit earlier to give him track position, and then get him back on the podium there.
Tremendous credit for David Coulthard, the way he's conducted himself here this weekend.
I think it's heroic. I think it's brave. The guy's in pain. We think he's got a cracked rib as well. You imagine driving with all the force and all the pressure in a Formula One cockpit like that, especially the harrowing thing that he's been through, the plane crash this week.
Finally, Tony, your magic moment from the race, and no brotherly love at all involved.
No, and Michael Schumacher has taken a lot of stick because the Italian press in particular say he lets his brother get away with a lot of things. He's gone soft on his brother Gaga, younger brother. But younger brother, look at this, just dives down. Doesn't matter that it's Michael Schumacher, his own brother. Now, was it tactical or not? Michael Schumacher still having a go at his brother. He was stung by the criticism at Silverstone when he let his brother through at Bridgebend in the middle. And what happens, Rubens Barrichello just dives through while the two brothers are scrapping and scrabbling for grip there. Now look at Rubens here, lining up. Absolutely tremendous. And he's going to go through and take that. And that, for me, was a wonderful moment of those cars sliding all over the place.
Barrichello dives through all the way to the podium. Tony Jardine, thanks very much indeed. And so here's your full Barcelona rundown. Fastest lap for Häkkinen, his third successive win here, always followed home by the heroic Coulthard. Barrichello's second podium for Ferrari. Ralf Schumacher, arguably the star of the day. Then Big Brother. Frentzen, the third German in the points. One lap adrift, Salo, then Zonta in the BAR. Fisichella, followed by teammate Wirtz. Irvine's Jaguar, Trulli next. Herbert in front of the Spaniard Genet, then Mazzacani and Heidfeld. Button's engine blew late on, Verstappen's gearbox failed, Villeneuve's BAR, that overcooked, Alesi and De La Rosa had that early collision, and Pedro Diniz hardly featured. Our next Grand Prix, we go to the Nürburgring for the European Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time on FA Cup final day, a slightly later start than normal for qualifying at 10 to midday. The normal service on race day from 12:15 and highlights at 11:50. And so the McLarens are very much back in business with two huge results here in Barcelona and at Silverstone. They're looming in Michael Schumacher's mirrors. Good night to you all.
Nice one, Michael Schumacher! Attack, attack, attack!
If you would like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by livesport365.com is www.itv-f1.com.